After an explosive start to Major 1, we've seen 10 teams from each region secure their spot in the Grand Finals. Let's take a closer look at how 2 of our trios qualified ahead of this weekend's games. The Romanian Ziandi and Shark qualified through to Grand Finals with their trio mate Dew after an incredible last game finish, made possible by this one tree. This trio land at Canyon Crossing, which is widely believed to be one of the weaker drop spots on the map. With slow farming metal and how it's quite literally in a canyon, you're susceptible to getting shot at from above. Because of this, the trio leave with fairly low materials, no storm surge damage, and only one void mask between them. To get their damage and materials, their strategy is to camp in areas where they know teams will run by to try to catch someone off guard. This is a risky strategy, since if it doesn't pay off, then they've wasted valuable time. After hearing some shots in the distance, they sneak over to Shogun's Solitude. Ziandi positions himself hidden right behind a tree and gets ready to attack, while Dew and Shark are waiting in the wings. Seconds later, Tobko runs up to farm the tree when Ziandi pounces, catching him off guard and picking up an easy elimination. After this, Shark and Dew come on over just as Ziandi eliminates Tropex as well. This sneaky double elimination get this team around 600 damage, triple void mask, and basically max materials that they couldn't get from their drop spot. This sets them up for the entire game, allowing them to position in less crowded areas of the map and not needing to overpeak for storm surge damage, therefore saving heals and mats for the late game. Like in this position here, they're nearly 600 damage above the threshold, mostly because of the off-spawn eliminations, and can just chill inside of their box. In a crazy turn of events, this trio then find an elimination in the 6th zone onto Fishy, the final member of the trio that they eliminated off-spawn, who was scrambling for surge after rebooting his teammates. This and a couple of other elims set this team up for the endgame, where they were able to play out their mats on the low to mid ground layers until in the top 3, where they can triple mask onto height and close out the game in style, qualifying them to the Grand Finals for Major 1, all because of this one tree.
Bonjour, bienvenue à FNCS, je suis Frankie Ward, et voici mes amis, Levin 2K et Mini Miner. Hello, my garçon, how are you doing today? Mini Miner, do you speak any French?
Are we on the English broadcast? Are we supposed to speak English here? I'm not sure. Hello, yes. I'm going to speak English if that's okay with everyone. Very excited for the broadcast today. I don't speak any French, no, and I'm very bad at it, so I'm not going to try.
Well, Levin, I need to teach you some French for Leon. So if you repeat after me, êtes-vous prêt?
Êtes-vous prêt?
And do you know what that means?
No clue.
It means, are you ready?
He'll need that. He will need that.
I will need that, yeah.
I am
Good
so
one.
excited to hear that in September in Lyon, and I hope that you guys watching are going to join us in the arena. It's going to be incroyable. And so is Group 3, because, guys, the lobby list for this Sunday is absolutely stacked. I can't believe we can only send 10 of these trios through. So should we have a look at the names who are on the list? Because there's a very obvious one here, Mini Miner. We've been waiting for them, I feel like, the whole year so far, just 2 months of it. It is, of course, Venno, Vico, and Flixie.
Yeah, this is a trio that everyone would say is the best trio in EU based off of performances this season. They've not placed outside of top 4 in the Division 1 finals. They won 2 of the weeks. They've had 7 wins out of a possible 32 games in a Valve finals. This team are absolutely on fire. And I think, Levin, they're just 3 players are just mechanically ahead of so many other players in this lobby and indeed the region. Of course, combining the successful duo of Flixie and Vico, now adding someone like Venno, it's just done wonders for this trio. And now I think they're just on fire and they're going to perform very well today.
No, absolutely. You look at the way these guys have performed, it's been incredible since their inception. You know, I want to give Venno some credit because as much as he is also incredibly mechanical and an amazing fragger and fits in with those guys in that sense, he also adds an element of strategy and calmness and a game plan that I think they needed to utilize their high-flying fragging power as good as possible, right? He's been the one that's been IG'd and leading them, working with Coach Raz and developing a game plan for these guys that I think is going to catapult them, you know, towards the top in a group that everyone is saying is the most stacked group, the best group of all the groups in all the regions. The fact that these guys are probably the most standout team here, I think goes a long way in just letting you know how good these guys are.
Well, I feel like you can't talk about Venno without talking about another couple of names. So let's bring up the lobby list and you'll see exactly what I mean, because there's history here. Obviously, I'm talking about Cami and Seti, and they've picked up Chari, Levin, and this feels like a golden trio so far from how they've been playing this season.
Absolutely. I think everyone questioned who's going to be the third, right? Who do Cami and Seti pick up that fits in with their mold, what they're trying to do? And they tried a couple different people, and it was good to see them land on Chari because I think he does fit in with how they want to play, but also adds a bit of dynamism that they needed. He can get fraggy, right? He has a bit of firepower about him that I think they very much needed when you look at the biggest critique of Cami and Seti over the years of, you know, not enough firepower, especially with the direction the game's going with the likes of the Vicos, the Flixies, the Peter Bots, you know, having as much success as they're having. They needed to add a bit of firepower. I think Chari gives that them.
Yeah, Cami and Seti are always a duo that had these interesting new strats, ways to get to that end game, and they're seemingly picking up where they left off with Chari now. They're obviously, you know, using that fishing really well. They were using the water boon really well when that was in competitive, of course, no longer is. So the way they're able to set up in mid-game for those surge bases, there's no better team really when it comes to actually saving those heals or actually getting those heals to actually use for later on in the game when they need to take that damage. So far, this trio have definitely been performing very well when it comes to the consistency side of things as well. They've had really good performances in Div 1 finals. They've only actually had 3 wins in all 5 of those Div 1 finals so far. So I'm expecting them to qualify through consistency today. Of course, they're going to put themselves in the position to get wins, but they're definitely a team that can perform very well today. Uncontested as well, which has been a big narrative for them this season.
Is Chari a big difference maker, do you think, for the consistency of these guys? Because normally when we're talking about Cami and Seti, we're kind of not too enthusiastic about them until we get to day 2 of the grand finals. But now we're predicting big things from the get-go, Levin.
I think when you looked at them last year, they struggled, I think, over the course of seasons, right? You know, there was a lot of questions around how much they were grinding the game together and whether or not there was the harmony we know Cammy and Sata have. And I think it is inspiring that they've, you know, looked a lot better early on in the season, right? They've been very strong. You know, you look...
I just
Frankie,
shrunk.
you're losing. You're losing me. I'm trying to keep a straight face.
I was like, where's my analyst gone? Who ate Mini Miner?
I'm really embodying Mini Miner here, aren't I? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
With Cammy and Seti, right, I think the big thing is that this season they've looked strong straight away, right? Compared to what we saw from them at times last season or last year. That is really inspiring, and I think they are very strong. The meta suits them really well. They're a team I expect to qualify through this group with ease.
Yeah, and I think a lot of their problems came from them being contested last year, right? They had a lot of situations where they're being contested, particularly by YZY, and of course that trio at the end of last year particularly, they didn't typically do very well. This year, this season so far, it seems like it's actually helping them a lot when they are contested, so it's really different to what we've seen from Cammy and Seti previously. Of course, winning so much off spawn against the French lads this year, it seems like that's being a very, very successful element of their game, which is not something we typically associate with Cammy and Seti.
Let's bring up the lobby list one more time, because there's a gentleman who actually picked up the Major One Finals title last year, but he was with Mustache, and now he's picked up Ping and Wox, and this is Malibuca 11-2K.
Absolutely. I'm so excited about this trio. This is a trio that I think needs a lot more respect on their names because they have been incredibly impressive thus far. And if you've watched Malibuca this season, the guy's playing out of his mind. He's super motivated, as we know Malibuca always really is, right? He's always known for being the guy that's grinding the game. But he's been playing incredibly well. He's got two amazing players in Ping and Wox who are playing with him, who had a fantastic year in duos. And, you know, when you look individually at those two, Ping, very underrated player. I feel like he probably is the one that gets the least credit in this trio, but very solid, very consistent. And then you get to Wox. I mean, the guy is unbelievable. Malibuca obviously won the first major last year with Mustache, and I think Wox is probably the player that's going to be most capable of replicating what Mustache was able to do last year in terms of that firepower, being the guy that's putting in the damage, helping your team get out of tough scenarios. I really like this team landing at Night Shift Forest.
Yeah, and I think the makeup of the team is very similar to Vico, Venno, Flixie, right? You get a very successful duo in Ping and Wox, 7th in Major 3, 5th at Global Championships. Add on someone that has the IGL brain that can lead the team in Malibuca, but also has that fragging ability as well. And it seems like we have a bit of a recipe for success so far. Their performances have been very good, not necessarily at the same heights of Vico, Venno, and Flixie, but I agree. Coming out of Night Shift Forest, they seem to be very, very good coming out of there. They seem to have the Storm Surge strategies on point, and the way that they can actually go around and sort of loot around the area seems to be really working out really well for them, particularly when it comes to Storm Surge as well.
Well, congratulations, boys. You've got me incredibly excited for Group 3. But let's head over to our casters, the Best Taco and to Carter, because I know they've got some thoughts they'd also like to share.
Thank you so much, Frankie. Look, Mini 11, you're talking about Malibuca, you're talking about Cammy, you're talking about Venno, a lot of veterans in Fortnite, but we got players like Hen in this lobby that has 3 FNCS wins by himself. I mean, that's more than all the players you mentioned. We've even got Shimoki in 2, sure, also 3 FNCS wins as a trio. I mean, we've got a lot of big names competing, which is exactly why people are saying, Taco, that this is the most stacked group in EU.
Yeah, and easily one of my favorite things about all those players you just mentioned is that with the reintroduction of this trio's competitive format, we are just in general seeing a massive resurgence of not just old guard veteran players, but also players that have kind of took a little bit of a hiatus from the competitive scene, and now they want to bring it back. Now they want to strut their stuff. They want to show that they're still capable, and I think it's been really cool as well when you take this multitude of experience from such veteran players like the Hens, and then you combine them with even some of the new school kind of up-and-comers and things like that. So as a whole, Takata, there's a lot to be excited for, and knowing that today is easily considered like one of the most competitive group stages that we have seen so far, it's going to be on fire.
Yeah, I mean, the most FNCS Finals appearances. We're back in trios, so we're seeing a lot of the OGs. It's what you love to see, but there's still more to break down. So let's head back to the desk before we get into the first match.
Much, guys. Now, we've spoken about some trios that we're expecting very big things from as we head onto the battle bus in a few moments. But now we've got another couple of trios who we could see big things from today, but we're not maybe so confident about them. And the first is a trio where we've got to see Mongrel and Savage stick together and pick up Panzer. And I suppose the first thing I'm wondering, Levin, is are you surprised that Mongrel and Savage did stick together after last year?
Not really too much. I think, a lot of people obviously tried to sort of get an understanding into what the thought process was there, but they've been consistent and clear about why they stuck together and that they enjoy playing with each other. I think the biggest thing for me when I'm looking at this team is just the fact that coming into the season, they looked really strong. Like they were performing very well. They were landing at the bird. Then they obviously have the typical Mr. Savage problems where he's just super contested. Obviously the bird got a bit of a temporary nerf, right, where the metal was gone, and so they moved over to Shattered. They were landing at a different spot. Then they end up getting contested there a bunch, right? And so you see the sort of the numbers here in terms of like their placements while being contested, just not as good, right? Typically, these guys are more successful when they are uncontested. And so even though they've not necessarily been performing as well, like they missed the last couple divisional finals and whatnot, they're uncontested in this group, Frankie, which to me is a very good sign because they're back at the bird, where the bird now has a bit more metal than it did before. I think this time around, I'm actually more confident than I, would have thought just looking at the form of these guys in recent weeks, Mini. I want to know how you feel sort of there. Like, they genuinely have a good chance to come out of this group, I'd say.
Yeah, 100%, and particularly because of the format as well. I think they're a team that will win a game today. I don't think they'll be coming out of there consistently. I think they'll struggle when it comes to those fights, particularly maybe off spawn against Malibuca's team if they do decide to rotate on down there and fight them. But I think they will have that one game, that one moment where we've seen from Mongrel and Mr. Savage previously in duos, they can pick up a win. And particularly in Panzer's case, I've been really, really impressed with how he's leading the team. He's sort of taken that IGL role, it seems like, and just allowing Mongrel and Mr. Savage to sort of bounce off each other and frag. And I'm really impressed with how he's actually leading the team, putting them in really good positions and really good situations. And as you mentioned, they've moved back to the bird. I think they played better out of the bird. We're seeing it in the stats there as well. Uncontested, they do seem to perform better. So I think it all sort of points to a victory royale for this team today, and I think they can definitely do it.
Is this a team that's going to get a victory royale once like the big names have gone through, or do you see them potentially taking one over the likes of Malibuca, over the likes of Venno? Mini?
I think, yeah, it all depends on zones for me for this team. It depends on how that off-spawn situation goes when it comes to Storm Surge. As I mentioned, Malibuca could definitely be a problem there for them from the north. If the zones start pulling north, I think they won't have that engagement, right? So they can have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to Storm Surge. So I think it doesn't matter who else is in the lobby. They can definitely pick up a win.
Now, I know that there are some fans watching right now who are just like, when are you going to get to this trio? When are you going to get to this trio? And here's the thing. This trio were right at the bottom of the teams who actually managed to scrape through into the group stage. In 99th position were our Danish boys, Thomas HD, Trippen and Fredoxy. They kept us waiting to see if they were going to make it through, Levin, and luckily they made it. I'm just wondering why on earth it was so difficult.
Yeah, they've had some struggles in recent weeks. They've not looked as strong as they maybe did near the start of the season. But it's weird because I look at Thomas HD and all of his experience and some of his recent performances, and he's been playing absolutely top still, right? You look last year, the criticism of Thomas and Queasy at times were that they didn't do as well in the cups outside of just the actual major finals. And some of that you could attribute to maybe Thomas not having that same sort of firepower that some of the other young fraggers in the region had. But he's been playing out of his mind. I feel like he's playing incredibly well, and so I look at this trio and I go, things in theory should be going a lot better for these guys. With that being said though, Mini, I look at the scenario in this lobby, I look at how the lobby's shaping up. They're obviously landing towards boxcars. Pumped Plant is contested, and so I think that helps them a lot when it comes to Surge, right? In the recent eval final, they had that same exact scenario where they're landing brutal boxcars, Pumped is contested, and they were able to get so much free early damage just out of that Pumped fight that it led to them having success in this lobby. I think they'll try to replicate that here today, and that should in theory give them enough to get out of this group.
Yeah, well, they're the second most experienced team in the lobby in terms of those FNCS finals, so you'd expect them to be in the Major 1 finals when it comes around to it, but they just haven't had those performances. And as you mentioned, those Storm Surge elements off spawn, when they're getting those hills outside of their drop spot, sometimes it works out for them, sometimes it's not. But I think when they're getting that Storm Surge early on towards the north at Pump Power, that's going to benefit them so much, because that's where they've been struggling when it comes to that early stage of the game. I looked in the Div 1 finals in week number 5 as well. They were switching up drop spots a lot during those final those final sort of 5 games. And I think it's just something that they're not really too confident at Brutal Boxcars at the moment. I don't think they're really enjoying the drop spot as much as they would have liked. So maybe we might see a little bit of a switch of drop spot from them today. We'll have to wait and see. But if they can play their Storm Surge well, they'll be just fine because they're just that good.
Well, we don't have to wait any longer because we are ready to board the battle bus for Group 3. So let's head over to the Best Taco and Takata.
Thank you so much, Frankie. Look, we got to lock in, Taco. We're in literally the most stacked group. It's happening now in terms of titles, in terms of FNCS finals appearances, in terms of stats. This group is literally at an all-time high. I believe a majority, if not almost all the trios competing today have made it to an FNCS finals before, so we are in for a show.
Yeah, something like 384 finals appearances spread across the board here, Takata. And what's even more incredible to think about is knowing that there's only going to be 10 places left for these players as far as group number 3 is concerned to try and make it without having to go through the last chance qualifier, because that is still on the horizon for any mishaps that might happen today. But we're going to start things off hot here. Lobby 1 ready to go.
A lot of the top teams aren't contested today, but there are some interesting things going on. I believe Art Skill, Misha, and Khan are going to be doing something where they like land Twinkle Terrace into maybe switching drop spots if Malabuka or Vico end up winning a match. As a quick reminder, to qualify today, you either have to get a victory royale in one of the 5 matches or place top 5 on that consistency leaderboard after the day concludes. But we're going to be starting right off in an early game engagement.
Yeah, and it comes as no surprise either that players would look to try and contest this position here at Warriors Watch. Everybody wants to be the team that actually gets to stake their claim on their preference. Burke, though, trying to open things up here with a good pump shot. Instead, just going to opt to try and break through the roof of some of these buildings, get a little bit of material count going. It's going to be hard to hold down any sort of semblance of a fight if you don't have the mats to back it up. Unfortunate here as well for Lyric that he's going to opt to have to just use both of those splashes on himself. Can't find an opportunity to get with his team, and his backup was very much needed because Rash has already been eliminated from this exchange.
Yeah, put into a 2 versus 3 now. Normally when you're thinking about trios, thinking about drop spots, it's about claiming space, but in drops like Warriors Watch, where you have that big main building with the majority of the loot, sometimes it's just a battle for it instead of that kind of claiming different little subsections of the drop spots. But unfortunately for the opposing team here, it is going to be a 3. Oh wow, I thought it was going to be 3 versus 1, but it looks like one of the players did get knocked down. Should be able to take him back up here though if Burke isn't able to apply enough pressure. Shots coming through, but so far this is looking very difficult for Burke.
Still a chance for Burke to be a huge problem though, just causing delay, causing these teams to not have the luxury of just opting for that loot path that they're hoping for, and forcing them to burn a lot of these early heals that they had initially found at this main building here at Warriors Watch. Burke still just running around the upstairs case, but it's not going to be enough. 1 versus 3, and the 3 will eventually close in. Some really nice early surge damage though taking place here at Warriors Watch, and circumstances continue to unfold even on opposite ends of the map here. Cap Factory, Shimoki getting pressured pretty heavily, doing what he can to sit inside of his box. Opens up, and that's a massive pump shot to turn things around. Shimoki, this is where experience comes into play, but can he get these revives? The third party already closing in. He needs to at least get one more teammate with him. He's not healthy enough to take this exchange alone.
He did pick up twos that have lower HP, so gonna have a bit of time to breathe. But the issue is, without any shields, just being 1 shot away from getting eliminated, it's gonna be difficult to outrun this one, as Toos is most likely running low on materials as well. The good news is that Oni Mask is really saving the day here.
Problem though, Toos hasn't had a chance to actually get any sort of shield recovery. A singular tag is all it would take, just about. Finally gonna have an opportunity to get a little bit of white heals going, but Veek still trying to scout him out. Bush checking instead, eats a tag from the distance, recognizing the fact that this duo, while they might be on the run hanging out by Salty Docks, they're still going to be drawing attention from elsewhere. Mid-map position closing in now. It's Reskar.
Reskar, Della, and Focus. Looks like from a third party to a fourth party. Hitting some nice shots, cracking his opponents now. Could open up that option to go in and play a bit more aggressive. They want to get more information, though. In these early game battles, you only have so much info from the feed. After you get some shots, you can tell, okay, are they cracked? Do they have spare shields? But it's difficult to know when you kind of want to fully commit to a fight like this.
The main pull here, though, is that Revskar was able to take this hill position, so he's got a really nice line of sight to help support Focus and Della as they continue to try and see what they can actually scope out from this initial exchange. Della, though, without that Void Oni mask, gonna opt to just try and pick up a little bit more Harmet material, farm some brick, and regroup. Think that they may have struck just a moment too soon. We're hoping that Vik and his team would be a little bit more out of position when they started that engagement.
Looking over at Veno, though, I did see that he got an elimination onto Clown. So they have rotated out of their drop spot quite quickly and efficiently. And now I'm not sure if they're going to look to close this one out, but so far they are with the upper hand. But this seems to be a different trio than Clown's trio, actually. So I'm not sure what actually went on here. Maybe it was most likely a third party that they kind of picked off one of the players from, and now they're trying to see if they want to commit to the next one.
Oh, Veno, he doesn't mind playing from inside the storm as long as Veno, Vico, and Flixie close out this exchange. That's going to be more than enough surge to kind of carry them through their mid-game rotational path and playing closer to that dead side. One up, though, trying to be wary, knows that Veno is kind of running around the rooftops, creating a lot of space up above. The opposing trio just doing what they can to stay as close-knit as possible. They don't want to give even the slightest advantage towards Veno and Vico.
And having won 10 out of the 18 EU finals since November, you can see how dominant this trio really has been, why they are one of the favorites going into the most stacked group on Europe. And we're going to get to see exactly why that is if they decide to close this fight out. But a zone starts pulling. It's only second zone, which means, you know, you can still tank a bit. It's not too dangerous to stay in a little longer, especially if you get a benefit from it.
The thing is, Vico, Veno, and Flixie, they kind of have all angles shut off. It doesn't really give a whole lot of wiggle room for 1UP's team to actually try and escape. I mean, two aerial perspectives, they're going to force them even further back, and they can continue to just try and lock them from entering on this edge of zone towards the northwest side of the map. But also Vico still seemingly trying to make sure with these Oni TPs that he's keeping again, just that general line of sight, does not want to let them go for free.
And back over to Cammy, Seti, and Shari. As you can see in this quick stat, have placed first, second, and third in the 3 divisional finals that they were uncontested. This is players, Cammy and Seti, generally when they were uncontested in previous majors. I mean, it was all about consistency. And having that option to qualify today from the top 5 in consistency, giving them good odds.
Plus, they were already starting to establish their surge base right above the all-you-can-catch, hoping that in a solid mid-map position, not only they're going to get plenty of fishing going on, but also those surge tags from just looking around the general area, knowing that players are going to be rotating through, especially from those northern portions of the map. Magic Mosses, though, decent amount of teams still kind of left behind, still trying to figure out what the best path forward might be. Seems like they're all just encountering each other, and a lot of times I think in these opening lobbies, Takata, teams will have a tendency to play things a little bit slower, trying to, you know, just kind of dip their toes in the water and gauge the temperature check.
It also depends like what game we're in, right? This is the first match, so leaderboard hasn't even been made yet based off the first game, so you don't know. Later on, you kind of know which teams need to get a victory royale versus which ones have to just kind of continue playing consistent. But when you're in that first match, anything can really happen. So everybody's just playing a little extra safe, not wanting to take those big fights. But who knows, maybe you have some trios that their game plan is literally to make sure they're as stacked as possible going into late game, even if it means taking those risks to try and have the highest odds of getting the victory royale. But Rico, Veno, and Flixie, they are still in zone trying to kind of take shots at these trios that have yet to rotate.
And this is something that's also relatively common to see coming out of Flooded Frogs. There is just so much resources readily available at the POI itself. Even with this invading trio, Veno, Vico, and Flixie can still afford to spend a decent amount of time kind of hanging out in the storm, looking for surge tag damage, and then doubling back to this Flooded Frogs location for the leftover heals that they will usually leave behind, because you can't carry everything with you, even in a trio.
Right.
But something else to consider after, you know, Queasy, Swizzy, and Merstache, it's a common concept that there's always the friendly level of competition. When you see Queasy qual immediately in that first lobby, actually hold that thought though, Veno in a spot of trouble.
Yeah, be careful on just the sliver of H3 getting out, but Arc is actually going to be able to knock down Flixie. It was to the storm after that initial damage that they were able to do. Doesn't even have a Sentinel pump shotgun in hand. Vico, on the other hand, with a legendary one. Veno with an epic one. I mean, in terms of loot, they have the upper hand here. Maybe the pressure, though, on them. It looks like Veno isn't just going to let that one slide after they took down his teammate. Now with all the players back up, zero materials to work with, this is a position that is incredibly dangerous.
Veno looking for the side jump, and he's gonna find it. Arc will be put down after that initial attempt to bring out Vico, but Vico as well ensuring that the escape is futile. It's a nice confirmation of eliminations for sure from this team. A little bit shakier than what they probably would have wanted to start things off with, but still, that's a team that's extraordinarily confident. The only thing I was going to add is that I wonder how badly Veno wants this first lobby of the day, Victory Royale, considering that he saw his friends yesterday do the same.
Got me a little scared, not gonna lie. I was like, well, what's going on here? You know, this is not what I would have expected, but they finished it off, they closed it out. It's what matters. As we're looking at Mongrel, Mr. Savage, and Panzer now. Fan favorite going into today. Love to see them qualify, as they are choosing to go more of kind of the split storm surge base route, using those Oni masks to cover a lot of kind of vision on the trios rotating in their surrounding areas. And if any of them get pushed, they can always just Oni mask to each other. So a good setup for that kind of safe damage in the mid game here.
Ooh. Danish boys getting active though. Thomas found some nice shots with that mythic AR over by Foxy Floodgate, but knowing that there's another trio that they're going to essentially have to cross against, they want to try and push that team further out to make it less likely that they'll be compromised, especially factoring that Tripper doesn't have one of those Void Oni masks, so the rotations I think are going to be, I don't want to say compromised, but it's certainly more difficult in comparison to teams that can just more readily choose their location destination.
Heading over to Shogun's Arena, though. I see Mongrel up top. There is another trio, though. It's Artist, who's what looks like might have been an engagement. I mean, they have 2 eliminations already. One of the players, no shield to work with, has to recuperate that, but I don't think there's any other trio that's kind of contesting them at this point. I did see Pixel, though. There might be a duo close by.
Can be super annoying, though, when you're trying to deal with the actual boss here at Shogun's Arena, and then there's just a player or two kind of hiding out on the top of this arena with you. But Artist seems to at least be wary of the mountain range in the background. That's probably going to be the biggest issue here, and it's Panzer who's actually surge basing up top. So when they actually look to try and take down that Shogun, they likely will also have to make sure that they're blocking off their perspective so that Panzer doesn't get any additional free surge tag damage on them. worse still would be if they find like a knock or so and they can just opt for a key circumstance.
Focus, though, is going to find a knock now. Looking to continue forwards. Good amount of damage. Out of the zone is the only issue. A lot of trios will be looking back at them when they try to rotate in. So they have to keep that in mind when continuing with this fight. Della, incredibly low. Good news is Revscar does have some chug splashes. They're going to recuperate it and now hopefully go for some sort of a full push, whether it be shing-shinging through the box or anything that they can do to get in. As Focus using that Typhoon Blade just as you should. With just one player left, and they're going to secure it.
This is disgusting to witness sometimes, Takata. Just watching a player kind of barrel into somebody else's box with that Typhoon Blade. But I think most importantly there is that Revscar's team definitely needed more material. They were running incredibly low on their mat count despite having so much surge above the threshold. Meanwhile, you got teams like Skyjump who are kind of a little bit worse for Rayer. They definitely need slightly more damage, even with one good connection off of a pump shot. Only 14 above. You cannot be comfortable in these types of circumstances, and Shaco's fully understanding the kind of situation that they're in, trying to find even more surge tags where applicable, but they just keep dipping up and below, but with those surge tags coming through now, Tooth, ADN, they might even just choose to hold Momsy's trio up above.
It's always a difficult choice in these situations when there's, for example, here are 7 players left needed to get eliminated for Storm Surge to no longer be active, and you only being 12, 13 damage above. It's just one AR tag, but sometimes you just can't get that AR tag and you just have to play a little bit more aggressive, which is exactly what Skyjump has decided. But the issue is there's a full trio looking at them right as they get into zone, as they get triple sprayed, knocked down, eliminated. And now Twy is going to go on in to clean it up.
They literally had several different trios kind of staring them down from that position. They'd been about as lobbied as you can get at this stage of the game, and even these separate team players now breaking off from that exchange, recognizing, hey, we weren't the team to actually collect those elims, so we're just gonna prioritize our position now towards that next zone. Shimoki trying to give a little bit of backup here for Toos, but they have been spotted out by some teams, as well as the teams that are kind of sitting up on top of Shogun's Arena.
Yeah, 283 below is not a position you want to be in, as now they're going to be forced to play a bit more aggressive. We have Ego, known as Short, as well, alongside Toos and Shimoki. This is a trio that has 3 FNCS titles. The experience is there, but it looks like they're having difficulties getting damage, now having lost the teammate as well. Toos and Shimoki playing as a duo. The pressure continues to stay on them. You can even look bottom right at the minimap how many trios are in the surrounding areas. Toos goes down as well, and Shimoki is going to fall shortly after.
This has just become such a cluster. Snaz not even going to get the chance here, but Jakey, ADN, and Michael seemingly going to be the ones to get the better end of this exchange, although it does appear as though it's just Jakey and Michael left standing. All 3 of those teams got stuck against each other when they were initially dealing with Momsy, and Della continuing to keep the aggression going. Strong years. Valorious not going to be able to finish off the elimination onto Revscar. That's a big double revive pickup now, and most importantly still, this trio has a really solid mat count, really solid amount of damage, and looking like they might get a chance to approach from a dead side, but they have to be wary of the team that's still trailing just a little bit in front of them.
Oh yeah, no, this is huge. 6 eliminations now with the resources. They're going to go full around the edge of the storm here. No need to go through the middle, as they can kind of try and wrap themselves around to the dead side. Like you mentioned, it's just about kind of doing so, making the uses of the Oni mask, even though you kind of want to save a bit of them for a late game. So I have good faith for Revscar in this trio here. We'll see if we end up taking a look at them later, but so far, for the trios inside of the zone already, Ping Walks and Malabuka are looking incredibly healthy as well.
With the way that the zone is kind of pulling towards this southern west section of the map, some elevation shifts could be crucial. Teams that are able to get ahead, kind of stake their claims on height above everyone else. And we know Veno, Vico, and Flixie, they are definitely a team that's going to be a top contender for controlling that high ground area. But as we scope things out over the mountain range surrounding Bird, a lot of these teams kind of approaching from somewhat dead side positions that could pose a real threat to whoever's trying to control height.
So this is 7th zone. Next one is going to be 8th, which is the first moving zone. So these players have to kind of position themselves with that in mind. What's kind of the game plan for this end game based on the resources that they have going into it? I saw Mongrel, Mr. Savage, and Panzer were kind of on an elevated, almost high ground position, but I'm not quite sure if it was in the zone or if they're going to want to continue playing that throughout the rest of this match. As now Snazy, Vox, and Ice are going to do somewhat of a late rotate as Zone starts kind of pulling out and allows them to go into a position where Storm previously was, causing there to be less players and it to be a bit safer as they don't really need damage yet.
Snazy definitely pretty content with this current side mountain spot. Just kind of looking at the rest of the landscape here. A lot of pre-existing builds kind of getting stuck, stacked on top of each other as teams look to try and leapfrog each other for the high ground. Blaha, slight over peak, definitely gets a pretty severe punish for it. Does have ample amount of loot though to recuperate those shields, but now it's Comeback after recognizing the fact that a team definitely scouting out that Blaha took a pretty big hit here, heard the shield cracks, might try to apply some pressure onto their box instead. They're going to be the ones kind of trying to shoot into Lunex's box.
Yeah, you just want to make sure when you got Storm Surge ticking that you don't get cracked, because that's kind of an opening for any of the trios beside you, that they know you're low on heals and everything. So going for triple sprays, going for pre-edits, going for anything you possibly can just for a little bit of tags is crucial before you start taking that damage. As now Storm Surge start ticking, Water Sprite's going to be used. Only trio beside them is going to be Mongrel, Savage, and Panzer. So it looks like they're going to be looking for any opening onto them.
This could be really bad news though for Mongrel, Panzer, and Mr. Savage. If they are not careful, Blaha might just look to desperation tear into their box, right? They're the team that needs Surge. Mongrel, Panzer, and Mr. Savage, they're going to take note of that, though. Immediately look to try and reposition. They don't want to get caught by a team that they can recognize as being a bit more desperate for that damage.
For Veno, Flixie, and Vico, though, with those eliminations they got in the early game, although it cost them staying in the zone a bit longer and rotating late, it has paid off with the amount of damage and resources they already have. We can see a quick replay of little more refreshes they were able to pick up as well.
Just easily one of the last teams you'd ever want to encounter in a fight. Veno, Flixie, and Vico. They got to be careful though. Seti for a moment looked like he was going to have an advantageous angle into their box. Instead, reshifts his focus back towards teams that you can see boxing up right next to him on this low ground. A lot of these teams, one more time, kind of scurrying to maintain that front side position. But this next pull is going to send everyone packing. Ping, Malabuka walks. They're going to even switch a layer momentarily. Ping just kind of popping his head to see whether or not it's going to be a safe moment for them to TP. It's just, a lot of it comes down to timing on these Void Oni masks.
Well, yeah, it's crucial to even before the zone appears, be looking in to see kind of potential rotates depending on where this zone is going to end up pulling. So you can be like Blaha, Mixon, and Comeback here and try and stay ahead as much as possible, especially in the low ground. Even Malabuka purposely Oni masking into the zone to avoid that risk of landing into someone else's box, as Mr. Savage is just looking for sprays, trying to even chop down some opponents, playing a bit more backside of the zone as they are going to look for an Oni mask up ahead.
They are just full targeting these teams that are trying to claim height, but way up above, Seti is cranking. Mongrel's not going to be able to make it onto that secondary height even, and now Seti doing what he knows best, just spraying down towards those secondary height layers, immediately committing as much hard material as possible. They want to maintain this leverage on the high ground. Down below, though, getting a little bit smothered here, but Mongrel still hoping for a chop, and he finds it momentarily. Shari, though, going to be able to reunite with Cammy, no problem.
Pressure is being applied. Seti does have the most reboot match style wins inside of this group, so if someone's gonna take it home, I see Seti, Cammy, and Cherry having a good chance here. But not if Veno, Flixie, Vico, or even Mongrel, Savage, and Panzer have anything to say about it, as now triple sprays coming through. Can they connect, though? This could be even be a potential knock, potential refresh as they walk on in with the pre-edits, looking to make something happen.
They know just how heavily Misha's getting pressure from both sides currently, and that's going to be the first knock available for Vico. Clean elimination spree as they continue to just build through this secondary height layer. Vico, Flixie, Veno moving as a singular unit now at this stage. They have what looks to be a relatively uncontested layer, so it's going to be up to them now to decide, are we actually going to make this chop for height?
Only 4 builds are left on Seti. Hopefully his teammates have a bit more. If not, a retake could potentially come through as Veno is already going for it and making his way up. It looks like he might have already claimed it. Seti's been forced to drop down. Cherry as well. As now Veno's going to regroup with his team and look to close this one out.
Vico, Veno, and Flixie, we've seen them here countless times before. Immediately going to make that connection towards the front side of zone. Saw Mr. Savage, I think for a moment they're scurrying in the low ground, but walks under so much heavy pressure from behind. Cammy, Seti, Shari, they're not going to allow Snazy to escape. Ping going to fall right next to him. And now is exclusively down to Walks to see if he can maintain any sort of momentum in this first lobby, but with no mats on the low ground, Seti and Shari, they might be in trouble.
They got the Siphon refresh as Mr. Savage with just 10 HP, 1 tick left. The Oni masks back into zone and taking out Flixie in the process, but Up is going to take him down. And once again, Cammy, Cherry are back on the high ground.
That might have just been the biggest spoiler alert there from Mr. Savage, finding that knock onto Flixie. Vico still trying to hold things down, but forced to drop, forced to give away that high ground. Now goes for the singular retake, but not going to be able to connect to the post shot. Great refresh, though, onto Cry Falls. And Vico, with that alone, he's going to look to try and make his power play through.
Double-digit eliminations. Vico, are you kidding me? As he takes out Cherry with a singular pump. Now a 1 versus 1 for high ground. It's all up to Cammy, but he goes down as well as Vico gets dropped down and eliminated in the end by Up. Finn, what did we even just witness?
Vico said, if it's not gonna be me, it's not gonna be you either, Poland. That was devastating for Cammy, Seti, and Shari. The way that Vico just, as a sole individual, goes on a complete reign of terror there towards the end. But kudos to 1UP and his team for just making sure to avoid the heat of the action there, Takada, because it played out for a victory royale here.
Look, it looked for a second like the show was on Cammy's team, on Veno's team, but in the end, Cantry, Finnick, and Up were the trio that just got one quick pump shot to finish it off and take home that victory royale. What a way to close it out. I need a bit of time to refresh my mind, Taco, so let's go right back over to the desk. Frankie, Min11, what just happened?
I feel like everything happened, guys. Great cast to start us off. Thank you so much. That was incredible. I feel like 1UP was like, look over there at Vico. He's going for everything. We're just going to take this victory royale from under their noses. I mean, we could talk about Vico, Veno, and Flixie all day, but let's talk first, obviously, about our victory royale winners, 11. Was it simply a case of patience for these guys?
This game was absolute cinema. Absolute cinema. Cantry, Fincheck, and Upple were literally the team that Veno, Vico, and Flixie were fighting in the early game, right? Those guys land right to the west of them. We started this game watching those two teams battle it out, and it's the team who, in most occasions, most people would say is the underdog team, the team you're not expecting to win out against the big dogs of Veno, Flixie, Vico. They're the ones that win the game, and they take down Vico to do it. It was just beautiful. We had so many top teams, but this team on the low ground are so underrated. Their form has been incredible in recent weeks, Mini. They're one of the teams that's been winning the most games in sort of the play-ins and different stages of tournaments. They're a team that, you know, not many people maybe have them on their radar, but if you're looking at the leaderboards, they've been climbing and climbing and climbing, and now they get to be in the Major 1 finals. They're taking down top teams. I am so excited to see the future for this trio.
Yeah, and you have to be a really solid team to be holding your own in fights off spawn early game against Vico, Veno, and Flixie, of course, and make it to that stage of the game. And then, as you mentioned, they fought them again right there at the end, all courtesy of that big high ground battle that we saw between two of our Titan teams in the lobby. Nice to see a low ground victory as well. We haven't really seen much of those across the course of the group stages. So nice to see those guys still staying alive as a trio there at the end. But what a game from those guys! What a start to their to their season, I guess, to their finals, because it's going to be an incredible watch for them next week.
Yeah, guys, I really couldn't have put it better myself, and because it's not my job, it's your job as analysts. These boys, they didn't even need the high ground to book themselves a spot in the Major 1 finals. We'll be talking about the rest of the lobby, however, after this short break, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to FNCS. Now, if you have just joined us, you missed an incredible victory royale from Cantry, Fincheck and Uppal. I called him one up earlier, but he does have one up on everyone in the lobby because him and his trio are going to the Major 1 finals. Yeah, 11. I did manage to recover that. But are our trios who nearly made it to the victory royale going to recover themselves? Obviously they are, because they're the heavy hitters in this lobby. We're talking Vico, Veno, Flixie, Cammy, Seti, Chari, and I feel like we've got to start at the end by talking about Vico in particular, because it was a fantastic game from start to finish for this trio. But Vico at the end was going absolutely wild. I think he had 6 or 7 eliminations to his name in those final moments, and the others had already grabbed 8 between them, Mini Miner. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, this is textbook stuff from this trio, going for those pre-edits. So often we see them pumping those walls, making sure to get those weak, getting those eliminations as much as they can, and we can see it in action right here. This elimination was actually the key catalyst for them to actually go ahead and try and take height. It gave them a massive refresh onto Misho right there, and all those materials they tried to use to take height here. We can see them doing it, and I thought at this moment, right, perfectly played, really nicely done. They got the refresh, they've taken the high ground off Cammy and Seti, who couldn't have the materials to hold on to it, and I thought, what's going on? Why are they dropping down? But of course, they did run out of materials here at this crucial moment, Levin.
Yeah, they're getting built for, right? You're going to spend too many mats that way.
Yep.
I mean, it was an interesting game, right? Because you sort of have these guys ramping up, Cammy and Seti ramping up, and it sort of felt like the story of the game was those two towards the end, right? And then Vico with this huge sort of clutch here. Again, in any other format, right, you know, you're looking at this and you're like, this is crazy. And of course, in this format, consistency counts, but you still expect these guys to eventually win a game. Vico, ballistic with that medallion in hand, right? Nobody can see him, nobody can touch him. He's so smooth. I think when you look at that team and Cammy and Seti's teams, you just thought one of them was going to win the game, right? If you watched yesterday, EU and NA, we had the 2 biggest teams in those heats, sort of just, or in those groups, win the first game. We had Queasy, we had Peterborough and NA. You thought it was going to be the same here today for a second, but in the end, another team steals it. Still 2 great games from Cammy, Seti, and, you know, Veno, Vico, and Flixie as well.
Levin, do you think that as an IGL, Veno just kind of leans back in his chair and goes, "Go, Vico, go"? And that's the call. And that's when we see the magic.
I think if he does that, it probably helps, right? Because, you know, if you don't know much about Vico, he's a great player, but he's a player that relies a lot on being confident, right? When his teammates are gassing him and glazing him, as the kids say nowadays, you know, he feels confident, he hits every shot, right? And if you can keep playing that way, they're going to eventually win one of these games. So I don't think Veno is quite doing that, but it would help probably.
So Seti, Cammy and Chari, they established the high ground from zone 9. Feels pretty sensible, but did they lose this victory royale because of that resource mismanagement? Did they actually over-egg the pudding a little bit early and spend all their mats misguidedly, should we say, Minnie?
Yeah, I think you could definitely say that, but you have to do that to hold on to height this season. There was a moment here where they actually got chopped and they had to reconnect. I think it was this moment right here where they had to just reconnect onto those builds below. And unfortunately for them, that actually expended so many materials for them they didn't get from those refreshes. They only ended on 3 eliminations, which just meant that they couldn't hold on to the height for as long as they would have liked. Still a really solid game, though, and a game that they would be really happy with, because, Levin, we expect this team to be in these end games. We expect to see them making it look easy when it comes to mid-game, and they'll be here. They'll be in that consistency, I have no doubt.
Yeah, I think both of these teams just looked at each other at different points in the end game and went, you guys ain't got nothing on height, we're going to take it up. You know what I mean? Like, both of them didn't really have mats, but like, Cammy and Seti look up and they're like, those guys look weak, let's just take it ourselves. And Veno and Flixie thought the same. So it's an interesting battle. I do think if you're holding height early in these games, Frankie, you have to be conscious if Veno is in the lobby, right? Like for Cammy, Seti and Chari, they have to know, look, if Veno's still alive in this game, they're going to try and take it from us a bit later. We need mats going forward. So again, there's mind games you have to sort of think about with such good teams in the lobby. That's why this Heat group is so intense, because there's so many good teams.
Do you think that the tactic for Cammy, Seti and Chari is to try and qualify primarily through a victory royale? I know that sounds like a stupid question, because obviously if you're going for the victory royale, you're going for the end games, you're hopefully going to rack up those consistency points. But given the fact, Mini Miner, they only got 3 eliminations and they're not necessarily a high fragging trio, or weren't a high fragging duo, is the VR the thing that's really on their brains here?
I think it's just consistency. Get yourself into those end games as much as possible. We saw it with iDrop, Sky and Scroll, just get their consistency, and then they'll actually get a victory round no matter what. So I'm sure they'll be in that position to get a win if they can.
All right, beat boys, it's time to get back on the battle bus. Let's find out who's going to take our 6-2 victory royale of the day.
Yeah, thanks so much, Frankie, 11, and Mini Miner. But Takada, the way I'm looking at it, especially after that Game 1 performance, everybody just wants to get the Victor Royale in, and doesn't necessarily have to be elimination heavy to do it either. But super excited for Uppel and his team and what they have in store for us for the Major 1 Finals. Definitely looking forward, though, to seeing what Game 2 has for us right now.
based on last game, that was looking like a major finals, Taco. I'm not gonna lie. With the names that were up, battling it out in those final moments, I could not be more excited for this second match of Group 3. This is the last group competing to try and take it home to the major finals. Only opportunity after this is the last chance, where only 3 trios will make it through. So everything is basically on the line for the players competing here today.
I'm so excited though. I mean, it really does get like your blood pumping when you watch instances like that from Vico, just knowing how much more of those types of moments might be in store for us. Clownski, Gudenbri, and Moneymaker, aka the popular kid. And a little bit of combat here at Whiffy Wharf. They're hoping to not whiff any of their shots though. They want to just capitalize on this fight, but Gudenbri bit off a little bit more than he could chew here. Clownski gonna hope that he can back him up. One finish onto Arc to start things off with here, but Clownski knows right now the prioritization has got to just be on making sure it's a full trio yet again. So the double revive is good. Moneymaker now gonna see if he can take down Rickboard, but launchpad getaway for the time being.
Yeah, what's interesting here is Clown in the game 1 got third-partied by Vico, Veno, Flixie, and I believe they took a bit longer to take this early game engagement. So Vico, Veno, Flixie saw it in the feed as they were already finished with their loop path and heading on over, which kind of allowed them to successfully third-party. So seeing they took this fight quicker is good, but another fight that's breaking out. Shimoki, Toos, and Sure, known as Ego in game, looks to, I want to say, be going in their favor, but you have to be careful as Shimoki's left with just 17 HP. Does get the knock though. Barrels are going to be used to recuperate a bit of that fallen health, as now it looks like it's a 2 versus 1.
The loot just looks so chopped for both sides here though. While they're caught up in this initial battle, unfortunately a third party is going to roll up, and Alo's team, this is a very similar strategy to what we saw from them in game 1. And sure he knows this is very problematic here. They don't really have much of anything left from that initial fight, much less to deal with a fully fresh trio.
Vic now kind of wandering on in, saying, what's going on? What's all the commotion? Was there like some sort of party I wasn't invited to? As more eliminations get shown in the feed, Sure has gone down. As now it's even more dangerous for the third party here, chasing down the remaining player.
This is definitely looking relatively clean though if you are Vic's trio, and SKW does find the finishing blow to this whole exchange, but another third party. Revscar, Focus, and Della wasted no time moving in from Rolling Blossoms Farm. They could probably hear this commotion from meters away, so they knew it would just be a lot easier for them to take advantage of some of those high hills leading into the POI. Focus gets a decent shot onto Vexy, not enough to bring him down just yet though. But Vic, same story can't be said here. That is a solid elimination that Revscar, Focus, and Della can claim.
Shot's gonna continue from afar as Della with another knock. After this one though, I think it's probably going to be about it for now. 42 points on the board already. Being only the second match, it's still not going to kind of cause changes in playstyle, I would say, because you still have an opportunity to qualify through consistency, even if you're at 0 points going into this match. So maybe just see a little bit more aggression compared to the first game now that, you know, the players are a bit more locked in, nerves out of the way. Although I say nerves, the players competing here are some of the most experienced trios in Fortnite competitive, so they're used to this. As a quick replay comes through.
Some of these teams though probably wishing that they didn't have to look to be eliminated so early on. Tough break whenever you find yourself on the receiving end of those types of circumstances. But Vico, one more time, we just saw him go ballistic in the last lobby. He's trying to keep that momentum rolling here currently. Vico just chasing down Skylight, finds the knock finds the full elim finish. And with 2 elims already under their belt for this trio, Vico, Veno, Flixie, they're aware that there's still one surviving member somewhere. They're probably going to keep a general, scope just to try and keep this final player underneath their thumb, but for the most part, content to just go back to their looting.
Quick shot from Veno as we see how the job was done. Michael, ADN, and Jakey. Now a bit of pressure on them from the sides. You can kind of see in the mini-map, it's almost like a triple sandwich going on, being in the direct center of 3 trios that are most likely looking for damage this time around, especially Fred, Thomas, and Trip. Having barely qualified through the play-ins now, seeing them compete in groups, I hope we have a solid performance from them throughout the day. As once again, kind of leaning towards the safer surge strategy early on in the game. They do land at brutal boxcars, so they'll have a good amount of metal going into this match.
This isn't even the same team, by the way, that Vico, Veno, and Flixie were initially chasing, but we did just get to see that initial oversight for how Vico still continues to get the job done here. It's Veno continuing, kind of space out these bushes, make sure that no one is trying to hide and hope for a reboot card opportunity just yet. They're looking to shut down anything and everything in their path, and right now it kind of just feels like the rest of this lobby is sort of at the mercy of where Vico, Veno, and Flixie are rotating through.
Hugging edge of storm, as we've seen Vico, Veno, and Flixie do, even taking those kind of engagements early on in the storm has really helped them out moving into kind of the later half of mid game and even late game, having to not worry as much about that damage and wasting materials during their rotates. Being able to kind of go more towards dead sides instead of being forced to play congested for that damage can end up using a lot of shields and a lot of materials that you're going to want to use later in the game. As we see another in the storm fight here, Howley looking like they're kind of not the aggressors in this engagement, but almost the prey.
Yeah, but based on the direction that we saw Vico, Veno, and Flixie last headed, and with this kind of battle taking place just a little bit northwest of Demon's Dojo, you almost expect that those teams might actually encounter Vico, Veno, and Flixie on their movement through the dead side of that northern section of the zone. So we'll see if that ends up causing any problems for those teams that we just caught a glimpse of. Inside the heart of Tinkle Terrace, though, Malabuka, Ping, Walks, kind of just doing their thing. Really solid mat count. The only thing Malabuka probably hopes that he had right now is that Void Oni mask, but still ample opportunity to pick one up along the way.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, either I don't want a Typhoon Blade or Oni mask. Oni mask is kind of the go-to. Kinetic Blade, it's a little bit risky with kind of as you use it, you stay still for a second or two. And in these lobbies, you got players like Thomas HC. They're not going to miss a shot on you as you're using it. Once again, we look at Camiseti Cherry. Now, this is a team that, in terms of history, Camiseti are more about consistency, don't really play high ground as much, but I said it last match, Seti actually has the most reboot match style wins in this lobby. And a lot of the wins, seeing the previous groups, have come from high ground. So either we'll see something changed or a similar outcome to last game, where we kind of had both trios, Vico, Veno, Flixie, and Camiseti Cherry, battling it out in those last moments. Excited to see if that happens once again.
The main takeaway for me, though, Takata, is just the fact that Camiseti and Shari, they might, if they are such a consistent team, a lot of teams might take notice of the fact that they love to just surge base up at that all-you-can-catch station, and a team from Night Shift Forest could maybe hope for an opportunity to try and pick one of them off whenever they go for a material refresh, while the other two are slightly more separated inside the surge base. Those repetitive habits can definitely work out in a team's favor, especially one with as much experience as like Camiseti and Shari, but it can also work against them. We've definitely seen them have struggles in past competitions with those types of outcomes.
Yeah, I mean, especially if they don't have the Oni masks, it's going to make it that much more difficult. And if you have a trio kind of playing the little hiding game, we saw, I think it was group 1 maybe, where a player was behind a tree, just kind of waiting it out. Issue with those kind of waiting games is time is everything. And these high tier lobbies in Fortnite competitive, you know, you have your early game where you need to loot it up as much as possible. You need to get as much mats, you need to get as much damage. And the more time you're kind of just crouched behind a door, a tree, in a bush waiting, one of the opposing teams to rotate is, you know, time you're losing on getting valuable resources. But it can pay off if you end up getting a refresh. You just have to kind of know when to stop.
Just outside of Seaport City, Della and Focus kind of taking separate angles. Revscar gonna opt to play from as like kind of the ground soldier here. Nice little review of what took place for combat. Clean elimination. Always love to see those. Solid moments for sure, but art skill, a little bit of the talk of the town leading into today, Takata, just because of the fact that for a moment, teams were uncertain as to whether or not this trio was going to be looking for a last-minute contest up against the likes of Venos over by Flooded Frogs, but he made it clear, no, the intention is to move in to where Malabuko or Veno are dropping if either of those teams is, you know, taken out of the lobby early on because they find themselves a victory royale. And the thing is, every other team in this lobby probably has the same intentions because Night Shift Forest, Flooded Frogs, definitely some really solid positions to play from.
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to work, though, because normally, you know, everybody knows that if a trio that's uncontested qualifies, that drop spot won't have anyone. But if someone kind of like pre-calls saying, hey, if this trio qualifies, I'm going there 100%. Like, you know you're going to get contested in that drop spot. So I wonder if it's going to work out for art skill. Time will tell if we see either Malabuka's trio or Veno's trio qualify. I'm kind of curious to see how that pans out. But back over to Clown alongside Gudenbreed. Looking to see if they can maybe take home this kind of out of zone engagement.
This has just been rough, though, for Zaro's team. Ark, Rikbor forced to just try and scramble, see if they can make something out of nothing. They had just gone for the reboot because that encounter earlier that Rikbor's team had with Veno, Flixie, and Miko is the reason why they had to go for a reboot play on Zara in the first place. And now Moneymaker looking to continue just shutting down their dreams of keeping this Lobby 2 run alive. D4 lurking in the low ground. He just doesn't really have a whole lot of material, though, to go for a crazy lurk play here. Buy some time, hoping, but Ark just gonna get fully collapsed on while his teammate is trying to sit and hide.
Yeah, Guden's gonna pick up that elimination shortly after Moneymaker. Gonna finish it off. I mean, they've already got 5 eliminations, even if they are far out in the zone. It's only 4th zone. They're missing out on, you know, maybe going for the Shogun's Arena, Rift Island. But the good news is Storm isn't taking that much yet. They have a lot of time to get back. Won't use a lot of shields or materials. And it looks like over at the Rift Island on Shogun's Arena, we've got Veno, Flixie, and Vico trying to take down the boss while there's another trio on the opposite side.
The other trio just looking like they wanted to lurk more than anything. Kind of just biding their time. Problem, though, Veno knows exactly where they are located. So they're going to wait and make sure that they have full control of where the Shogun is actually at. They're making sure to stay tightly grouped. That way, he's not going to be teleporting over to the other islands, for example. So just gives them pretty much that confirmation for securing the Shogun's medallion and whatnot. But teams just kind of implementing their own strategies along the way. And I think even reflecting back towards Moneymaker's trio just now, I mean, we saw them with Whiffy Wharf with the fishing rod. Anytime you see a fishing rod in somebody's loadout, you know that they're gonna probably be set as far as resource utilization is concerned later on.
Yeah, we see a lot of teams holding it further into the match as well, as you can see exactly how to make use of it. There's so many little kind of bodies of water, rivers that you can just fish in, farm those shield fish. As Ice, though, Vox has been knocked down, trying to find out where his teammate is. Are they going to be able to get him back up? As shots come in from the back, has to be careful. Looks like he wasn't even able to edit his cone there. As now they're kind of pinched in this tight situation. Not a lot of exits as they have to pickaxe out. Dandir is going to be the one aggressing in, finishing Vox off.
Never want to be the team that gets stuck inside the focus from several different trios. And right now, Dandy seeing if they can try and close in even further onto Snazy and Icy, but it is unfortunate for Snazy to continue to try and see if he can find some form of an opening to lead himself and Icy into safety. But this is just a little bit of a collateral damage circumstance for Snazy. They might have just gotten a chance, though. Teams looking to rotate out. Instead, they're going to find themselves getting hunted. Skylight one more time. Saw it happen to him in the last lobby as well. Just unfortunately picked off when the rest of his team goes to make the rotate.
Ooh, Onima's going to come through as well. It looks like they want to maybe get a bit more damage here, possibly even open up an opportunity from his teammates further away to get some shots in. Only 74 above. You can't imagine that Ice is feeling too comfortable, but after that crack, it's going to bump them up to 138.
Yeah, at this point, they should probably just try to make sure that they find these last two eliminations. You already got the shield crack once. You know that there's going to be a third party lurking directly behind you. So close in on one side if you can. And Rekfiji makes the mistake thinking Snazy is going to be a prime target. Instead, Snazy going to be the one taking out Rek. Artem trying to see if he could go for the revive, but Icy's just too quick with it. Shuts that down, no problem. And what looked like a pretty grim situation initially for Snazy and Icy, they definitely just bought themselves a good chunk of time.
Yeah, I don't know about that one. I mean, it was 5th zone going into 6th, so it was going to pull to one of the outer skirts of the zone. But still, like, either way, the odds are it could pull the opposite side of the map, and I think that's exactly what happened to that trio that aggressed into the zone, so I'm not sure what they needed, but clearly it was something if they took that fight. As Artist now is going to be doing the same here, trying to finish a solo that's running, but Veek is going to get taken down. Second elimination for Artist in this match now, recuperating a bit of those materials as we look at Flixie, who almost lost Vico, but after already having 5 eliminations as a trio, taking out one, the other one's knocked. I believe this could already be a 3 versus 1. And just like that, they cleaned up the trio.
And that's the problem with trying to make a Lurk Island play up against a trio like Venovico and Flixie. Maybe if you're lucky enough to get to the top of the Shogun's Arena before such a powerhouse trio like these three have a chance to kind of spot you out in advance, Takata, but the problem is they didn't have a way to get off of the island once they were already stuck up there. Because you know, Venovico, Flixie, they are never going to let those guys escape.
Yeah. Especially after kind of poking at them while they were trying to take down the Shogun boss, like that little annoying mosquito you find at 3 a.m. But they got the job done. As we're back over to Artist, 43 above. On the edge of the zone, this is the congested side. You can see the amount of trios that are around here. Could be good or bad depending on which trio you are. When you're so low in terms of damage, it's actually not a bad place to be. A lot of options to do so, but it's always risky ones as Cryfalls has been cracked. Now trying to disengage as his teammates back him up. Sanguild looking to see if he can get a bit more tags, but already 406 above. They're not in desperate need of anything.
Sanguild, though, gonna look to maybe take advantage of catching somebody off guard. Triple pump attempt onto the floor. Granted, doesn't reveal anything just yet, but Sanguild knows there's definitely another trio or two way too close to their current vicinity. They're gonna opt to try and reposition, but finding themselves a little bit stuck out. It's gonna be a tough rotate from this point into zone, Takata. So many teams just based up on higher positions, trying to shoot at them as they go.
Yeah, I mean, you can see Lane, for example, taking the full right side, which has barely any trios, but Artist is going to choose to almost beeline this one in up the hill, which has the trios already based up on it, potentially looking back at them. But at this point, do they really have time As we pan on over, Mongrel, Panzer, Mr. Savage, kind of taking advantage of being on that elevated position, shooting the players while they're rotating before making their Oni mask rotate. Kind of a bonus of having triple Oni mask.
Brutal boxcars, though, does provide some decent natural elevation with the mountain range just behind him. Mongrel, though, massive shots taken out of his HP bar, and Malabuka pinging walks. They smell blood in the water for sure, just sharking towards them closer and closer. They want to see if they can secure those eliminations. They're going to be forced to come to a halt for the time being.
Take a quick look at how Cryfalls was able to get that knock onto Focus. Doing a good job of moving the player back into safety so they can secure that loot without the risk of getting knocked down as well. And from what I'm seeing, it looks like Seti might have already been taking out, leaving Cammy and Cherry alone, 55 below. They lost the Storm Surge damage from Seti. Now forced to find a bit more as a duo. Water Sprite used as Cammy's last heal, last shield in the loadout. Only wood left to build as well, as this looks more grim than ever for this duo.
That is up until he finds a huge pump shot onto Cool. That's going to give him a little bit more material and a Typhoon Blade at least to swap out with that Kinetic Blade he was rocking. Still going to be a tough circumstance, hoping to just go unnoticed in the sky, managing to Kinetic Blade straight towards the front side of zone. He's going to stake out his claim on the low ground, gets a nice shred into Voxtail, but now has to turn back, try and hold things through. Shari also looking incredibly battered here, does not have a whole lot of heals to work with.
Good job healing for his teammate, though, as we look back on to Mr. Savage. Both his teammates low on shield. They have enough to recuperate it. They just need the time to use those splashes, as now they're going to continue to get into zone. Have to be careful not to land in another box, as now the pressure could be on, but quickly enough getting themselves into safety. And now hopefully they can either decide, do we want to stay ahead or do we want to wait for this next zone to appear? And then with that triple Oni mask make their way in, but Mongrel's already been taken out. Panzer still low on shield. Savage stuck in another box now, as he's cracked to just 84 HP and left as a solo.
Savage just too separated, not able to look for the backup that he'd been hoping for with Panzer. His team, though, still able to communicate. Panzer does have a tendency to IGL through the late game, so he might be able to help out Savage despite not being a direct participant. Tripper in a very similar situation to what we just saw as well, holding on to this last charge of the Water Sprite, but making his way through towards his next portion, and he's not going to get the chance. Immediately eliminated the moment he tries to leave his box.
Look at the clouds, though. Shake off, sky jump. Looks like they're going to want to hold on to height here, as they do have to be careful of the teams rotating through right below them. So far, just making sure nobody else is trying to contest, seeing if they can stay ahead, pre-placing those Oni masks, ticking off the checklist to play high ground, as Mr. Savage is still up as a solo, and he's climbing up even further.
Mr. Savage looked like he had the intention for a moment there to try and lurk secondary height. Instead, gets a huge rip into Shari from behind. Did not have a chance to see that one coming. Final splash has been expended, though, and Mr. Savage is down to his last few builds as well. He's going to have to sit behind and hope that somebody runs in front of him. Instead, going to try to just TP forward. Final cone. And that is all that separates him from being lobbied here.
Yeah, the zone pulled opposite side to where Mr. Savage was. Unlucky pull, but as a solo, you do want to ride the back of the wave as high ground has been chopped down. Shakeoff reconnecting as we look at Ping, Malabuka Walks, who have a great tarp here on low ground. But once again, it looks like Vico, Veno, Flixie, they saw height, they won it as the battle unleashed.
Vico, though, getting a little bit clipped from the side. Veno gonna back him up. Momsy seeming to be the one to try and shut him down, but instead, Flixie going to ultimately help them secure the height. But wait, Vico, he's been taken out. Shoga's medallion now belongs to Momsy instead. And with Skyjump having just recently been knocked, it's going to be only Flixie and Veno left up above. But they know it's a pretty significant blow, losing Vico in the process.
Be careful, Malabuka's looking at high. I think he looked up, he saw the action. They could potentially go for a retake here. Ping gets chopped down, but Malabuka is going to use that Oni mask back up. As Ping's stuck on the low ground, he needs to help his team out out here. Onimask gets used. Now the battle continues. Will Veno ever get a break?
The problem is, Veno and Flixie, they're only a duo. Wox being Malabuka instantly swarm the high ground. They've been chunked though, but the pre-place TP is gonna make sure that they don't get fall damage at the bottom here. Flixie still trying to see if he can take out Malabuka. So much damage done though to Malabuka's HP bar, but now it is exclusively Veno trying to replicate what we saw Vico do in the last game.
Going into Storm here, looking for more angles. Onimask gonna be used to get back in, but it's onto a full trio. Connects the shot, but it's not enough. Wox, Ping, and Malabuka are maintaining height.
And Malabuka looking incredibly healthy at this stage in comparison to Blaha, Comeback, and Mixon running extraordinarily low on the builds. They might have that Shogun's Medallion, but they don't have that overhead advantage. Comeback gonna be the first one taken out, but he does manage to get the 1-for-1 exchange with Malabuka. Ping though, looking for some of the final shots to secure. It's so close for a victory royale.
Baja goes down though. Wox, Ping cleaned it up, and just like that, Malabuka, Ping, Wox are gonna secure the second victory royale of the day. I know they got a smile on their face, but so does Artskill and his trio. They've just found a new drop spot.
Just a little bit too telegraphed there for Wox, Ping, and Malabuka from the high ground, just in a substantially better position, but definitely gotta hand it to Comeback and them for trying to do what they can to delay or turn that in their favor. Just really well executed on the height retake by Malabuka's team.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, congratulations for that victory royale. We'll be seeing Malabuka, Wox, and Ping in the major finals. But hey, also, Veno, Flixie have been incredibly consistent throughout these late games. Mongrel, Mr. Savage, Panzer have been incredibly consistent. So I want to see how that changes things up on the consistency leaderboard. So let's head right back over to the desk.
Thank you very much. Congratulations to Malabuka, Wox, and Ping for their victory royale. And this is definitely a victory royale we saw coming, Mini Miner.
Yeah, definitely. Really nicely played there. I wouldn't say we saw it coming right there at the end because it looked like Vico and Flixie had the control of the high ground, right? It looked like they were able to hold on to it, but it was a couple of missteps, a little bit of movement problems there for Vico that actually made him fall. And then, of course, they lost control of the whole game from there on out, and it was Malabuka that could just easily TP on height with all of those materials that they were able to get. This is the trio, though, 11. We highlighted at the beginning. We expected them to do well. We expected them to win, and this is exactly how we expect them to play.
I was very happy watching that. Very happy watching that. You know, Malabuka, one thing about him that you've always been able to say from way back in the days of EU compared to Fortnite is he spots weakness like nobody else, right? And so when they look up on height after getting all these refreshers, getting their mat count up, and they see what's going up on height, they see that there's been a build fight, they probably notice that there's only 2 of them up there as well. They just know this is ours for the taking. Nobody can stop us here. And, you know, they are just so ruthless. Ping and Wox, after Malabuka goes down, they get the job done. They handle it in ease. It's Blaha and them. Still a great game from the guys below. But, I mean, this trio, I'm so excited about them. Again, I'm almost upset we're not going to get to see more of them, right? Because they had a bit of a quiet game 1, here in game 2, loud as ever, pick up the win, and they go into the Major 1 final.
That's all they needed, really, boys. I mean, we would not imagine a Major 1 final without Malabuka, and Malabuka couldn't imagine it either, which is why he's already secured his trio a place in next week's showdown. We are going to take a short break, but we'll be back very soon to talk about the rest of game number 2. Welcome back to FNCS. If you've just joined us, and I know I say this every time, you missed a marvellous feast for the senses in FNCS, but we're going to talk you through it now. And the sense I got from this one was that this lobby is truly delivering Mini Miner, because we have seen Venno, Vico and Flixie yet again up at the top, taking the high ground, nearly taking the victory royale, but unfortunately falling short in this instance. Can you talk me through the game for these guys?
Yeah, it was a very similar game, I think, to game number one, where they went for that high ground. They tried to chop them out, successfully did it. Then the team on height reconnected, so they were like, okay, we'll go up for the next zone. And then they tried it. It just didn't quite work out, Levin. I think the way that they went up for it was pretty solid. Everything was working out, but just a little bit of individual error, I guess you could say, from Vico, where he couldn't quite take one of them out and got a big pump shot onto him. And unfortunately, it just didn't work out. It was this moment right here, I think, when Flixie was trying to take, you can see Vico's health there down in the bottom left, just going down so much. And it was a misstep. It was a misplay, if anything, from these guys, and I think if that had gone well, they would have worked out, and they would have got high.
Well, yeah, with that type of high take they're going for, right? Venno's front side sort of, distracting while the other two's chopping the backside, and Vico's the player that they give the medallion to. And so he's crucial in that high take to flank and make something happen, right? Really just be a nuisance to the team on height. And, as much as we praised him in that first game for his, heroics and clutching up, in this game, again, it sort of goes a bit awry for him, right? He's trying to crank up, the movement isn't quite right. He goes for a side jump and then just ends up flying all the way down, which does happen to quite a few players with some of the new movement we saw in this chapter, to be fair to him. But yeah, that sort of is what cost them the game there, unfortunately. But again, we'll see them in those situations more and more throughout the day.
Okay, 3 things I want to tell you guys watching at home. 1, 26 eliminations in just 2 games for Vico, Venno and Flixie. Wow. That is ridiculous, but you have got a team of 3 of the finest fraggers in international competitive Fortnite. Then also, if you look at positions 1 and 2, they've got over 1,000 points. That's because they have scored themselves a golden ticket to next weekend's Major 1 finals. They're no longer going to be in the lobby, which means that their drop spots are up for grabs. Then, the 3rd thing. If you look at number 4, aka number 2 currently on our standings, really, it's Combeck, Blacker and Mixon. And Levin, I know that you really rate this trio extremely highly, and we got to see why in game 2.
Yeah, they've been playing really well. Shattered Span is a POI that is really strong. And it's weird to me how in EU, it kind of wasn't really getting as much praise, right? Like, if you look on the NA side of things, if you are an NA enjoyer, Rise, Muzz and Yapko have just been bossing it from that spot, right? And they make it look like one of the best spots in the game. And, I feel like people have just been sleeping on Mixon, Combeck and Blaha from this spot. This game, you can't sleep on them. 2nd place, 13 elimination game. They're a team that can win games. Like, they're one of the few teams, again, in this lobby that has actually won games in set lobby finals, right? The only other teams in this lobby that have shown that they can win a game are like Trippin, Seti, Kami, Ping, Vico, right? So these are like some of the best of the best. The names we're hyping up as, this is the most stacked group of all time. Like, Combeck, Blaha and Mixon should be respected more. They should be a team you consider when thinking who can win a game in this lobby.
Yeah, they're always sort of silently doing well, aren't they, Blaha and Combeck and Mixon? They're always that sort of team that aren't necessarily right, just dominating the entire week. They're always sort of consistently performing, making those end games, kind of like a mini Cami Seti type trio. But as you said, Levin, they do have it in their locker to be able to pick up a victory royale. I'm expecting more from this trio as well as we keep going on. Of course, now they're in 4th place on the leaderboards. They're looking strong. They're not qualified yet, but a really good start from this trio.
Well, hopefully we'll see more consistency from them as we go on. Cami, Seti and Chari, however, we didn't see as much of them in that last game. It looked like they were missing in action during the endgame, Levin.
Yeah, just a bit. A more quiet game for them. Seti went down. We didn't quite see how that happened. So, you just leave Cami and Chari in a clutch situation. They're going to make good out of it, right? They still get some decent points. I think the key to remember here is that they just need to stay high in the leaderboard just for the sake of consistency, right? You don't want to head into game 5 and you're just outside of the mark. Then we're sort of in a nail-biting situation, right? Similar to what we saw with Pink yesterday. So, as long as these guys can clutch up like they have done in this game as a duo and then Chari eventually as a solo, get, however many points you can out of it, you'll be all right, because eventually they'll get their game as a trio where, big points or even potentially the win.
So you're
a little bit Sorry, a little bit lower on Surge. I think that was their problem there. I think that's where SETI went down, as you said, and we didn't quite get to see it, but it's uncharacteristically low on Surge for that team. Maybe they couldn't quite find those tags in those bases that we know that they love. So I think that was the big problem for them going into that end game. They had to lose SETI in one of the fights when they had to fight for Storm Surge.
I don't know if we're able to see the standings again, because I just wanted to see if we could see Les Français and where they are. And I'm referring to Shaco, Skyjump and Mumsy, because unfortunately they did get chopped down by Vico, Benno and Flixie as we moved into a very heated endgame. But you can see they went up a whopping 23 places to 10th place. So they're making their names known. They want to make it through to the Major 1 finals. They want to get to the Fortnite Global Championship in Lyon in September. And bon chance to those guys as we head over to our casters, the best tag out in Takata for game number 3.
Thank you, Frankie. Look, they're not the only trio that's right on that borderline, too, to qualify through consistency. Levin was talking about them. Cami City Cherry, Mongrel, Mr. Savage Panzer. These are trios that are kind of on that borderline of consistency. So I'm curious to see how this changes up now, getting closer to what? You know, literally the halfway point of these 5 matches today. The battle bus is ready, so let's get right into it.
Big cheese in Takata, because it's been a fun battle bus adventure so far throughout lobbies 1 and 2 here today. And with game 3 underway, essentially our halfway point of the 5 matches we'll be spectating here today, I saw something rather interesting. Our skill already making the call out like, hey, Malabuka, and it's going to be our turn to take over that night shift forest. So curious to see how that's actually going to play out for them, because as our analyst pointed out, they're not going to be the only team that might be looking to shake things up a bit with where they're landing.
Yeah, I don't know. I was talking about this last game because I don't see a lot where people kind of like pre-fire the call. You know, like if this trio quals, I'm going to land here. And it looks like Toos, Chamoki, and Sure are still going to have the same action that they've had in the previous groups, though. So hopefully this time around, they can continue kind of staying up.
Yeah, I think it seems when they have a familiarity with where they are landing, they might not necessarily want to immediately jump ship to a new spot altogether, just because they know, like, hey, there might be other people looking to have the same idea as us. But sometimes you just got to mix things up a little bit, and I think that was the case for ArtSkill's team. They want to see whether or not things are going to shape up better for them. This fight, though, taking place consistently at the Kappa Kappa factory, it hasn't really been a super net positive for either of these trios involved, largely because of the fact that we've just been seeing consistent third-party action out of Refscar's team.
That's the issue. Like, one thing is to lock in and focus on these early game engagements, right? It's about, you know, I've talked about it before, claiming space, looting efficiently, all these things. But when you're in set lobbies, you have all the other trios surrounding these players, keeping their eyes on the feed. If they see one of the players get knocked, especially 1 or 2 from each trio, and have a, you know, good idea that they will have the advantage if they third party, they're just waiting for that to happen. So either you got to finish these fights really quickly or leave with a less amount of loot. So it just makes it quite difficult as we head on over once again to Ice, Vox, and Snazy, who have been playing incredibly consistent throughout the day.
Yeah, you talk about fast time to eliminations, and that looked about as quick as you can get. Unfortunately, though, this is looking like it might be onto Hen's team, who's currently suffering, getting chased down by the likes of Snazy, Vox, and Icy. Orasa, a singular representative of that bear army, but currently wishing that he had a little bit more firepower to work with. It does seem like it's been enough, though, to just have some slight pushback, a little bit of time to breathe. Although I don't anticipate that Snazy, Vox, and Icy are going to let this one go anytime soon. It might just be that they scouted out Howley in the distance that caused them to shift their focus.
Only time will tell. What I like about Mongrel Savage Panzer is you can kind of tell how much prep they did in terms of each of them having their own role here in the early game, whether it be farming metal, whether it be pre-building your surge bases on an elevated mountain. And it all depends too on what kind of zones you end up pulling. If it's going to come towards you, you have to rotate away. There's so much work that these pro players put in just leading up to the events that it's truly impressive. As we head back over to the engagement we were talking about not too long ago, Taco. Are they really going to let it go? Or are they not? As we can see, Snazy and his trio continuing to kind of walk along the side.
This is a new team entirely that they're currently trying to catch themselves off guard against. Is Snaz looking for a long shot Void TP just to set up, establish a different angle. His teammates can pressure from the front side there, and he'll just look for that side flank. Another trio though, and I think the biggest problem as far as the play-ins were concerned for Thomas, Prodoxy, and Tripper, and I think that it's just been tough for them to re-establish their identity as a trio, especially with how much they've had to kind of shift their game plans as a response towards changes that they've been witnessing at their POIs.
Yeah, I mean, this is the only group where we've had an uncontested box cards, though, to be fair.
This is crazy.
But look at this. Why, Jake, our Halo just kind of on the pursuit right now in the water, looking like Olympic swimmers as they continue to chase down this solo. I'm thinking, though, they don't have any eliminations. Where did they find this player?
I don't know where this started, but the fact that we've even gotten to this stage, Takada, is insanity. Both of these trios setting themselves up to be third party if they're not careful, rolling in from that soccer stadium area. We saw Moneymaker's team having taken notice of them, and not the only trios looking to kind of shake things around. Vico, Beno, Flixie, Cammy, Seti, Shari, some big firing power in both, and clashing head on this early outside of Brutal Boxcars.
That's not good, Taco. That is not good for our trio, Cammy, Seti, and Cherry, that was 7th place going into this match at 84 points. They were doing so well in terms of consistency, but having a match like that where you get potentially 0 points if they didn't have any eliminations, it's going to drop them down quite a bit on the leaderboard, and they're going to have to put on a performance for the last 2 matches today. But it's definitely possible, and if a trio is going to do it, it's going to be Cammy, Seti, Cherry.
Almost makes you wonder if this is one of those circumstances where Veno, Vico, and Flixie, it's not going to be that it's like conflicting for them by any means to take out Seti, Cammy, and Shari, but more so holding down that mid-map position could be a big part of the reason why they would just want to try and set themselves up early for that Shogun's Arena. Veno even probably just hungry to get that Victory Royale already.
Yeah, I mean, they've been doing so well, constantly playing aggressive towards the high ground. And I mean, it's led to them being, what, the most consistent trio today that has yet to get a VR. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure, almost guaranteed that they're going to qualify through consistency at least. But I want to see a VR, Taco. I want to see a VR from Flixie, Veno. And as we look over to Shimoki here and Toos, actually, they're doing a full corner map rotate and still have the fishing rods too. This is interesting.
They're gonna have to fish at this point. They are just so far out in no man's land, and with 0 eliminations, that's not to say that it's impossible for their, surge damage to be steady or at a level that they'd prefer, but something tells me that those early engagements they got caught up in, Takada has just completely thrown them for a loop in this lobby, and they're just looking to try and play the recovery tour now.
Yeah, I mean, normally though, when you don't have a lot of damage, you don't want to take that fully uncongested side because you're just not going to see trios. You will conserve shields and mats from not getting shot at, but sometimes you want to see trios, right? You want openings for damage, so I'm wondering how much they've secured so far. But as we look back on Moneymaker, Gooden, and Clown, quite a few trios in their surrounding area, so they will have options for tags, seeing that they don't have a single elimination yet.
Night Shift 4 is definitely picking up a little bit bigger population size than what some of these other teams in the area might feel comfortable once they take notice of it. Kyriak, Voltiax, and Cool though, just hanging around, rotating through the sides of Pump Power and coming in from such an elevated position. They'll be able to spot out teams that are looking to also try and make that dead side rotating. Comeback, Mixon, Blaha sitting tight because they know they've got a team right next to them. And I'm not even sold that this is a fully we have to be stealthy maneuver. How long they've been waiting inside this building though, Takata? That's the real question.
Well, what I do know is the aggression is going to come through, and this looks not like a soft fight. It looks like a full-on all or nothing. Mixon gets knocked down. On the contrary, though, they do take out. Sure, a 2 versus 2 is going to continue to play out as Comeback has been cracked. Blaha helping, almost taking out Twos, gets him. Now the 2v1. It's all up to Shimoki here.
It's definitely a dire situation that Shimoki has been placed into. And it's not even one that he can feasibly escape from. You can hope that he gets this revive while the double revive is happening. But it's just so much longer in comparison to that double revive. Still find success though. So Toos is brought back into the mix, but a couple of small fry. And Comeback just continuing to try and apply some pressure here. Toos though doing a good job at just being able to bail out.
Oh.
Blaha turned
No
upon
way.
immediately, and what looked like such a favorable situation, it's now still in Shimoki's court to potentially close this one out.
1v1 is what it's looking like, but the third party comes through. An absolute beam as now both trios are on the losing end. Mixon trying to get out, as it looks like Maffey here is just gonna kind of clean up all the extra loot.
Even crazier still though, you can see teams off in the distance. Fredoxy kind of spotted out by his lonesome, wondering where the rest of his teammates are at. Clownski, Moneymaker, stuck in a little bit of a skirmish with Savage, Mongrel, and Panzer. And I know for a lot of people watching, this is obviously going to be a long-standing fan favorite team here with Mongrel and Mr. Savage, but it has been impressive to see the way that they have essentially played coming out of Bird, because we've seen them be uncon there before and still have issues with qualling to various events and things like that. And I think part of that was just because of the fact that it was so easy initially for other teams to essentially third-party them from that POI, since it is in a lower elevation area, so teams play the mountain ranges, kind of take advantage of shooting into them and rolling up on them last minute. But they seem very prepared today.
Yeah, I mean, even the last match, I think it was Savage that was left alone for quite a significant amount of time, clutching out those last points. So it has been an issue within, teams that he's played with. They just have trouble staying all up together. But hopefully this time around, if in these last matches they can power through as a trio, I can see them definitely continuing on that kind of route to qualify through consistency.
Tripper and kind of still hanging out over by Brutal Boxcars. But for right now, it's all about Michael, Jakey, and ADN. Just trying to get some various tags into teams across the way over by Lost Lake. I also like this mentality from ADN, just fish while you can. It's going to be a lot harder to find opportunities for this once that endgame starts to take place. Just so much chaos and teams kind of rolling over into your box.
Wait a minute. I think Flixie has just been knocked down up on Shogun's arena, now causing Arc and his trio to potentially play a bit more aggressive. They go for the double res. Will it be enough time? As one player is holding the bills, the other is resing, and now it looks like Flixie has been brought up, but they've had a lot of situations, Taco, where it kind of gets a little too close for comfort here.
That double revive is so quick though, and Vico, Veno, they might have just been more upset by the fact that they're being contested currently on Shogun's arena than anything else. Still willing to try and just tackle this boss up here. Zero consideration for the trio that they were just dealing with. In fact, it doesn't even look like that team is stuck around. Takata, they knew the last thing that they wanted to do was try and take that fight. The moment that the successful double revive happened, that was what really sealed the deal on Arc just deciding, okay, we're better off leaving.
You can see the aura that Vico, Flixie, and Veno kind of have, right? Normally when you get a knock, you're like, all right, we're trios. Let's just pre-edit, go right into their box, right? But now, you know, you see they kind of give them time, let them revive, and you're like, okay, yeah, we're going to run away now. Fair enough, though. I'd do the same thing, to be fair. I'd be out of there, so good news for Vico, Veno, Flixie. They did take down the boss. They got that Shogun's medallion, so Veno will be invisible while sprinting, which is going to be huge for the late game, especially if he has to clutch it out. I'm excited to see if they can kind of use this Rift Island now to get tags on opposing trios, and even if they pull zone, maybe use it to their advantage for height.
Yeah, Vico's punishment from last game doesn't get that same medallion priority. Veno's going to take it since Vico found himself eliminated first. I'm not going to say that's the actual reasoning, but it would be kind of funny to think about. Still, knowing that that team is in control of that Invis medallion, Takata could really pose some serious threat to teams that are trying to play more passively in those mid-ground layers, because Veno, Vico, Flixie, that's an area that they like to kind of play out of right before they look to make their height takes.
Yeah, it kind of depends on how these zones do end up closing, but I'm excited to see how it plays out as players continue fishing, getting spare shield fish so they can use to kind of lose a bit of HP for tags if needed. As we're back to Thomas HD, Fred, and Trip, I want to see a big game from this trio here. Looking at the materials they have, the loadout they have, now looking incredibly healthy. It's just about kind of damage at this point. I want to see them get a strong late game. They already have one elimination in a good position in zone, to be fair, so I got high hopes here, Taco.
I mean, they want to see themselves with a big game also. They have... It's been odd. Again, I know that this team has had to do a lot of last-minute adjustments, but when you think about the veterancy that's represented from this trio and the fact that, you know, Levin made a great point on the desk, Thomas, he's kind of been leading the way as far as like stats and numbers are concerned. Top of the board there from Thomas consistently. So a big performance would definitely go a long way here, especially considering how they just scraped by to be in this group in the first place off that play-ins performance.
Yeah. I mean, we know Thomas's history. I'll bring out more about it if we see him later on in this match. Hopefully looking to close it out, but Blaha, on the other hand, is not in the best of positions, you could say. Good news is he does have his full trio. Bad news is he's gonna have to take time to pop this med kit while his teammates look for damage on the teams kind of taking shots at him. They've also used quite a lot of metal to kind of not get focused here, and they do have to rotate anyways, so hopefully they can at least make use of this base to do a bit of damage. 34 above now.
Couldn't have come at a better time either. Those shots from Maha, but they're not out of the thick of it just yet. Mixon even going to look to try and take out this tree just to open up even further line of sight. Unfortunately, though, the damage numbers just continue to slip away from them and against their favor. Artist not safe inside of the bush, though. Blaha one more time, saving grace for his team. But it's so little damage above the threshold. Almost immediately, they dip right back below.
Yeah, and they're walking to a side of zone where I don't know how many angles they're going to have on opposing trios other than the ones directly behind them. It's going to be their only option here to shoot back, so they need to connect these shots. 68 players up in the 6th zone. This is just going to be a tough rotate overall.
Especially considering that they have already used practically all of their core materials. I mean, still enough split both ways between Mixon, right? But Comeback, unfortunately, gonna get taken out. That surge threshold just so problematic, especially when you're dealing with teams that are taking notice of your team being under so much stress. Unfortunately, it's gonna leave Mixon and Blaha to try and close this one out. as a duo at 205 below now. The jumps just keep getting bigger and bigger, and yet Blaha, Mixin, they just don't feel comfortable quite yet exposing their position and looking for some tags.
Yeah, bad news is they've got 9 players needed to get eliminated. I was gonna say good news is they've got a few seconds to get tags, but it's literally a few seconds now as Storm Surge will eventually start ticking here. But yeah, Blaha Mixin at this point, it's go for a third party, go for a pre-edit somewhere. Like, you're not gonna get enough damage here just kind of shooting the players. So I don't really know
that
what.
was
Yeah.
yeah, the intent there was definitely to look for a third party up against Momsy's trio. It's just not going to come to fruition here. The final med kit being used now. This might just be the beginning of the end. Mixin even. It's not going to be Surge, but it might as well have been, because Skyjump and them just immediately pounce. Clean elimination. Now is going to draw more attention towards Blaha. Skyjump, Shakos just continuing to aggress into these walls here. Blaha buying himself a little bit of time, but again, Takada, just how much is really enough here for Blaha's circumstance?
You could like sneeze on Blaha and eliminate him right now with the amount of HP he has. 2 trios in the surrounding areas. 2 HP on the dot. 334 below. I don't know if Blaha ends up coming out of this and ending victorious. That's gonna be
He's
history,
winning the game.
If he wins the game, oh, I'm gone. I'll leave right now. I'll just stand up.
Oh no, Mongrel.
No, Mongrel gets eliminated. Savage and Panzer left as a duo. Once again, not a full trio form for this late game. Something they consistently run into, but hopefully they can at least clutch out a few points to maintain their spot on the leaderboard.
These teams are just getting shredded, though, trying to make their way up the elevation, this slight cliff face here, and teams that were already on height. We saw Asa as well getting beamed, eliminated in the process, and a good chunk of those teams on the low ground kind of struggling to stay just above that damage threshold territory. Takada, Mr. Savage and Panzer, they can definitely feel the pressure rising here. Blaha will be taken out by that Surge tick as Veno, Vico, Flixie, a much healthier team in comparison to the rest, and they're going to take full advantage of it by just getting primo positioning.
Yeah, when you're this healthy, you can get yourself close to zone, and even if you want, pre-fire some Oni masks into where the storm currently is, as now in just a few seconds, it's going to be zone that you can go on into. Good news is now they can just look back, take shots at everybody that's going to be rotating in. Thomas HD, Trip, and Ferdoxy are continuing to look quite healthy throughout this match. As now, for the players that aren't so fortunate, like the ones on the other end of the door of Veno, Flixie, Vico, it's going to be another elim on the board, already at 6, and the end game hasn't even started.
Yeah, QB tried his best, but it is an unfortunate trio to encounter Vico, Veno, and Flixie when they are on such a rampage. Vico, though, teleported up to height, but definitely paid a pretty significant price there.
Oh.
Good amount of shields to recover it, but they've got to watch their floors currently. Teams underneath them looking to try and see if they can chop them out, catch them off guard, and look for a knockout elimination.
Yeah, lost the water sprite to that. That's not only a good item, obviously, to replenish shield, but also if you want to try and retake height later in the game, you can kind of tank storm with that water sprite and then look for a back of the zone height retake. But now running lower and lower on shields, we'll see what they end up choosing, as 9th zone will start pulling here shortly.
This is the team, though. Rickboard, Zato, we saw them briefly attempting to challenge Vico, Veno, and Flixie on the top of Shogun's arena, but it looks like that disengage has slightly worked out for them. Unfortunately, though, that material count looking a little bit too low to actually try and consistently control height. All the while, Thomas HD from the low ground might be set off into a blind TP here. Could be in danger still. As long as he's able to reunite with the rest of his team, he's going to be set for the time being.
Look at this, though. Savage, Panzer, they've played this whole endgame now out as a duo. We'll see how far they're able to go as they run lower and lower on materials. Only 11 builds left for Mr. Savage here. Going to be forced to play a bit more of the backside of zone, use those Oni masks to try and get ahead as Vico, Veno, and Flixie are looking still incredibly healthy enough to make a high ground retake here shortly.
They are just so committed to staying about 1 or 2 layers above the low ground, fully tarping out so many of these boxes being claimed by them that they're going to be able to look for heights soon enough here. Mr. Savage, though, will no longer be a part of this lobby. It's exclusively down to Panzer to get some big placement points for that trio. As now, Greek boarded, they've been chopped successfully. Veno spotted his moment. It's only a matter of time. Vico even going to teleport up because he knows his IGL is already making way on the high ground.
Not only that, they got a knock from the chop. One of the players either didn't have an Oni mask or just didn't place it before they were chopped down, as now it's a basically free high ground for Vico, Veno, and Flixie. With the amount of materials they have, the amount of ammunition, shields, it looks like if they just play this by the books, they can close it out, as Trip has been left as a solo now. Pumice HD, Fred got taken out, as now Trip has no materials to work with. Either goes down.
The biggest threat currently towards Vico, Veno, and Flixie from closing this one out is encountering other fully intact trios. That's why they're trying to play some disruptive factors here towards the low ground. But Veno, with that Shogun's medallion, just kind of diving every which way. Twy not going to stand a chance here. He'll be the first one to get knocked. Ovalo going to be next there from Vico, as now Jake Buka trying to do what he can to escape, but it's no good. Vico's got him in his sights.
I'm looking at this trio. They're looking absolutely electric. Don't feed the beasts. They're hungry for eliminations. They're looking for more. But you got to be careful. Flixie has almost gone down. Gonna have to take a pause, recuperate that HP before they take the final battle. Might be against Della, Refsguard, and Focus.
But Della just ate a massive chunk out of his shields. He's not healthy enough to continue this exchange. They're trying to just fully commit to the low ground play to make it where you can and hope that Veno doesn't spot them out anytime soon. But Veno, all he wants, all he needs is just a good connection shot off of the pump. Just wants to be as disruptive as possible towards the low ground. France still represented currently, though, with Skygem down below.
Quite a lot of trios playing it out, but now the battle of low ground comes through. Perfect opportunity for high ground to come on in, say hello. Shakeoff now deciding to play Edge of Storm here, trying to find an angle, a potential connection, but it's Flixie from the backside is going to get that knock, as now Momsy's going to fall shortly after, and it looks like it's a quick cleanup for Veno, Vico, and Flixie, but I don't want to speak too soon as Flixie goes down. Veno now left alone alongside Vico. It's looking like a 2 versus 1. This could go either way.
But this should be Veno. Veno wants it so badly. Momsy gonna try and prevent him from connecting the shot. The mantle up turns against Veno, but Momsy can't face off with the big Vico, as Vico ensures that Veno himself and Flixie get this victory royale. That was a dicey ending, though, Takada.
I was on the edge of my seat watching Vico, Veno, Flixie play that out after player going down to the last 1v1. Luckily enough, though, Vico was able to connect his shots and take home that victory royale to book themselves a golden ticket to the FNCS Major Finals.
It's just the way that they ran in one after the other. For a moment, it looked like Momsy might actually be able to do it. But that is just the kind of backup firepower that Vico, Veno, and Flixie all entrust each other with. They knew from the moment that they took high ground that it was just going to come down to exclusively timing their engagements.
Yeah, and I mean, Momsy and his trio, they were not too high on the consistency leaderboard. They were making their way up there, but now with that second place position, they're going to be healthier than ever. So let's head right back over to Frankie Levin Mini for them to break it down.
Thank you so much. And Takata, you're absolutely right. Our French trio, they were in 10th position going into this game number 3, but now they're surely going to be looking higher. We'll be talking about that after the break. But right now, we have got to say sayonara to Veno, Vico, and Flixie, because they booked their spot in the Major 1 finals next weekend. They are inevitable, and the writing was on the wall, really, from game number 1. Vico was absolutely on fire, and Levin, it's only fitting that he took that victory royale.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the key there was actually the switch up. We saw practically the exact same play in terms of going for the height take. You saw them sort of chopping things out. And in this game, instead of Vico being the one with the medallion, it was Veno. And I think it makes more sense. When I've spoken to these guys about that in the past, right, Vico feels more comfortable without it. And he'd rather Veno has it. And I think Veno's a better player with it. If you know Veno's playstyle, he's a bit more of that lurker style, right? He enjoys lurking, catching people out, finding good timings. And so a medallion that allows him to be invisible is just like busted, right? So yeah, I think that combination worked better. I will say, as much as they are inevitable, once they took height, it felt like no one was going to take it from them mini. It was close. I mean, they almost lost the 1v2. I don't want to, down on their parade too much, but they definitely had me on the edge of my seat. Still though, a very good win. Can't wait to see these guys in the finals.
Yeah, and it can be quite easy to do that when you're a trio. We saw it with Donnie's solo clutch in NA last weekend, where the trio just kind of went in one by one, isolated themselves as solos. With the way that Siphon works, the solo player can actually clutch up inside of the Storm, so it was very, very close for them. You're absolutely right, but what wasn't close is the fact that they're now qualified through to the Major 1 finals. They had an incredible day overall. It's been a third place, a second place, and now finally the victory royale. And yeah, I'm really impressed with this team. I think what they're able to do in these end games, the ability to bounce off each other, the ability to have the understanding of each other is really good. And it's interesting how they actually switched over to Vico having that medallion, because almost every single game that I'm seeing from them this season was with Veno with that medallion, with that invisibility coin. So now they've gone back to that sort of strategy. It seems to work out very well, and we don't get to see them anymore. Flooded Frogs is now open.
Oh, well, it'll be very interesting to see if Artskill's going to be dropping there then as we head to game number 4. But before we can do that, we've got to take a short break. A biento. Welcome back to FNCS. And Vico, Venno, and Flixie have done the inevitable. They've booked themselves a spot via Victory Royale in next weekend's Major 1 finals. Call them the woodcutters because they always be chopping. And I imagine the lobby will be breathing a sigh of relief when we head into game number 4. Leven, look more impressed than that. Please, I beg you. I need this job. I have a family. Now, let's talk about Rescard, Della, and Focus as we take a look at the contenders for the Major 1 finals next week, because we're sending through 10 duos today in Group 3. And you can see that they climbed into 7th spot. They've gone up a whopping 10 places from a solid performance. And it feels like this is a trio that's really warming up. They've got experience on their side, Leven.
Yeah, I think that, you know, when you look at where they're landing, obviously Rescard was landing at the Roll and Blossom split earlier this season when he was playing the Sky and Scroll, so he knows the spot well.
Early, though, with Sky Jump down below.
You know, these guys, you know, I feel like they definitely have a bit of an edge, and so I feel like I'm all over the place right now, Frankie. I'm hearing things I'm not supposed to be hearing. I'm seeing things I shouldn't be seeing. Regardless, I feel like this team is a good team, and so they're sitting comfortably now in that consistency spot. A couple more games, a couple decent zone pulls, and I feel like they could definitely be in the finals.
Yeah, and I think a big element of playing that spot well is something that I spoke about last week with iDrop, Sky, and Scroll. Is just playing Surge well and making sure you can get those damage tags off spawn as effectively as possible, because a lot of the time you have to sort of roam around to try and get those tags, is what that team did so successfully. I think that was sort of the key to them not necessarily having the best start today. Now hot off a 3rd place, 10 eliminations for this trio, really looking strong. And we saw the trio qualify through in iDrop, Sky, and Scroll last week from this drop spot, so it's definitely possible for this team as well.
So that's your prediction then, and I'm interested to see who will win the Battle of the Showdown if you do get to see those
We can't hear you right now, Frankie, so you can just keep smiling away. We can't hear you. But I will say, when it comes to Rescard, like, this is the type of team where, like, if you see them now, like, qualify, right? If you're iDrop, Sky, and Scroll, do you start side-eyeing a little bit? I don't know. That starts to concern me. That's always my fear when I'm, like, looking at some of these different teams. I will say, Sky Jump, Shakers, and Mumsy, they're now the #1 team on consistency. And, I mean, these guys are a massive threat. And it's another example of a team doing incredibly well. And now with your Queasy, right, who we watched yesterday with Swizzy and Mustache win a game, my oh my, you're gonna be side-eyeing, right? Because this is the biggest threat to that team, right? Mumsy, Skyjump, and Shakers have been the 2nd best team. You'd say, maybe French fans would argue they've been the best team, right, from Seaport this season. So if these guys keep doing well in qualifying, which I do expect them to do, I thought they were gonna win a game at some point. Mumsy definitely felt like he was gonna make that happen, and he's really like the spark in this team, right? Because Shakers and Skyjump, very experienced French players we've seen for many seasons. Mumsy's the new console GOAT who's burst onto the scene and giving them incredible firepower.
Yeah, he really has. I mean, that was a really good game from this trio yet again. They had a 4th place in the game previous to that. Now, of course, a 2nd place is going to give them so much firepower. But what I'm noticing here is that none of our trios have actually qualified through via consistency yet. I know yesterday it was around, I think it was 175 points, I think it was, that Pink's trio got to actually qualify them through. And I think in some of the previous times we've actually seen these groups, some teams have already been qualified. They've already been past that threshold. So it's really interesting to see now how the lobby's going to change. Without Venno's trio in the lobby as well, how's Hike going to change, like we spoke about yesterday with Queasy? Lots of questions to be asked.
Well, there's just 2 more games for the lobby to change, so let's head over to our castle to game number 4.
Thanks so much, Frankie, Leven, and Mini Miner. But a pretty big breakdown taking place on some of our teams that are still looking to make their way through that victory around the kata. But consistency definitely looking pretty nice for a lot of those teams at the top.
Yeah, it's looking nice for the teams at the top, but what about the teams at the bottom, Taco? We've got 2 games left to be played out, and at this point in the groups, it's kind of like you got to start thinking to yourself as a trio, maybe we just got to go all out for that victory royale. High ground's going to change a bit more. It's going to be a bit more risky, but luckily enough, we don't have to wait long because game 4 is here.
And with the start of lobby number 4 here, Takada. Those teams, like you mentioned, their last result essentially is going to come down to just finding that victory royale. They don't really have any sort of time to waste, but one big game here in this 4th match could also help close that gap pretty significantly.
Luckily enough, though, for the trios that are uncontested, they don't have too many worries about having to kind of play it all or nothing at their drop spot. If you are uncontested, you have more of a chance to kind of play it out through consistency. As with only 5 games, it's quite difficult to make it happen. You have to play quite well every single match. As we look at almost, is this going to be a 50-50 contest up here?
It's looking like it. These teams willing to, you know, kind of split the difference here, but Jupiter is going to open up those initial shots. War Snipe, it is an absolute brawl currently. And both of these teams definitely taking pretty significant blows here currently, but Yasin still trying to hold down the fort here.
Has that Oni shotgun in hand. I was gonna say issue is only 1 shot in the chamber. Teammates helping out, dropping an extra shot, and now the first one connects. We gotta be careful. Take the time to reload. 1 more needed to finish this engagement off. The Mini was almost popped, but found a quick angle, and just like that, Yasin is gonna be able to pick both of his teammates back up without even having to commit to a reboot.
Looked rather unfortunate there. Poor Minor, it looked like he got stuck for a second on that chunk of the map. A little unlucky as far as how he was trying to actually wiggle around there, but Kappa Kappa Factory, we've seen this time and time again. Toos knowing that he's got to lead the way here. They're having already lost, sure, Shimoki as well, trying to see if there can maybe be a separate angle approach. But Toos has more than enough left in the arsenal still. Able to take that one out. Now the real concern, will they be third-partied by Reskar & Co., or are they actually going to get a chance to try and play things through from Kappa Kappa?
I mean, it's tough. 18 points going into this match. They have gotten those 3 eliminations, and it's a trio. Shimoki has 2 FNCS wins on Asia. Toos has got an FNCS win. They've got 3 as a trio, and now being so far down today, they really kind of do need that victory royale, so hopefully this is kind of gonna set them up for it in this match.
What is big though is that with that last win there for Veno, Vico, and Flixie, Flooded Frogs being fully exposed now for new teams to try and make it their home. And Rick Boris, keep in mind, they were one of the teams that kept consistently encountering Veno, Vico, and Flixie in that last lobby. Wouldn't be surprised to see them maybe even look to try and make some plays for Shogun's Arena later on.
As now we take a quick look at what ended up happening in that initial fight, how they got a quick cleanup. But after you get those initial engagements, it kind of gives you a lot of benefits. Not only do you have the freedom to continue with your loot path and, you know, farm up your metal and kind of do all those things without the risk of having to constantly, you know, avoid shots from another trio and not let them steal your loot, but it also kind of gives you that freedom of having that early damage. As we go back to Rickbor and his trio, and once again, an early fight.
Yeah, Fighting Frogs living up to his name right now, though the fight's just shifted a little bit away from it, but Zato looking like he might be able to open up this exchange all the further here for Ark, who's just breaking down some of these pre-existing walls. And Ark as well, having those chili chug splashes means could opt to use one just to try and be a little bit more aggressive with this exchange, but currently it seems like they might be willing to just wait it out, because eventually, Holly, they're gonna need to rotate in. They can't afford to stay on the outskirts of the map forever.
Yeah, definitely not. Look at Shimoki too. He was looking like the aggressive, but as he slid down the hill, cracked down to about just 20 HP, I'd say, as now both Shimoki and his teammate sure have been knocked down. Toos now is left alone, and although they started off with those 3 strong eliminations, once again, like you called it out, Taco, the third party is gonna come through. Refs guard, Focus, Della say, hey, knocking on the door. I saw what happened. Don't think you can get away once again. And just like that, Toos gets taken out, leaving it all up to the last match.
It's one of the most glaring issues that teams that actually opt to drop at Kappa Kappa Factory encounter. And this is a reoccurring theme, because even if you think about the success that we've seen from trios like iDrops going out of Rolling Blossoms Farms, very often they would look to try in third-party teams that were fighting over by Kappa Kappa Factory, or just looking for general eliminations, even if teams were uncontested in that position. So it's no surprise to see Resguard doing more or less the same with his trio. Moze, though, spot of hurting currently at Sakura Stadium. Does at least have one of his teammates next to him, but the problem is how split the other might be.
Yeah, I mean, it's okay to take fights in the storm when it's the initial zone. It's only 1 damage per second, so you don't really have too much to lose. It's more depending on how far that zone does end up pulling and how long you do end up taking in these engagements. You want to try and clean them up as quickly as possible, but sometimes it's just too hard to do. It's too risky. But it looks like Snazy, Ice, and Vox are not really going to let this trio go anywhere.
This might have been a spot of self-sabotage from Rick Border's trio. They were hoping to get just a really fast few eliminations. Instead, they're going to find themselves on the receiving end currently while they try to make their run for it. Zaro having already been knocked, Snazy, Icy right behind him, Vox as well, and sure enough, with Zaro having been cleanly eliminated, it's now down to just Rick Bor whether or not he's going to even have an opportunity to try and get that reboot card, make the reboot ban play. But you're just spending so much time trying to recover how your early game started, Takada. I'd almost anticipate that their mid to end game wouldn't bode much better from this current position. They might just need to look to try and run things back for Lobby 5.
Yeah, speaking about end games too, I didn't even get to see what really happened with Thomas, Tripp, and Fred last game. I mean, they were looking quite good. I think they got a little staggered behind in zone, and then next time I look, it's just the solo trying to run it through. So once again, I mean, the mid game, they've got it down. They have eliminations. They already got full mats, good loot. It's just those end games are not really going their way.
Well, to be fair, we did see them at a point where they made a little bit of a risky call, because we saw Ferdoxy, you know, kind of keeping an eye on teams that were playing from inside of the storm, even as late as like 5th, 6th zone, right? And so for them to be willing to spend so much time rotating so much later than the rest of the lobby, getting focused while they were making their entry to zone isn't too surprising. It's just if they're able to build up, because we did see them with a good amount of surge, at least for that time that they had invested. I do think it worked out for them, but
yeah,
now it's just about executing on the end game entirely.
Speaking about executing, it looks like there's another trio that wants to finish this fight up quickly. Is now looking to see these kind of engagements, it's finding multiple angles, especially if it's in a POI that has a building where if you even break kind of one of the walls, you might even be able to open up a position where they can't place any builds. So it's taking multiple angles and not going through the same one, unless they're looking for a pre-edit or triple spray. But if that's not the case, it's just find different openings, try and catch one of your opponents off guard, even box them up, anything you can to give yourself the upper hand in this fight. As now the opponents have grouped up, trying to stay together, but they just have to be careful of their surroundings.
We're just continuing, though, to keep seeing these teams that are kind of shambles as far as their material count is concerned. So these stretched out fights definitely not going in their favor. Thomas lost his shields entirely. Fortunately, does still have shield potions to make up for it, but Seaport City proving to be a little bit of a difficult destination so far. Fishing might have been the original intent here, from this trio. Instead, they're going to be dealing with Momsy and Skyjump, and they're not the only ones. Just saw Hen and Asa strolling up behind them.
Yeah, good news for the Skyjump, Shakos, and Momsy, though. They put themselves up at first place in terms of the consistency leaderboard. They were, what, like bottom middle half into one game, launching themselves into 10th place, and then right after that, launching them into first place in terms of consistency. So with 2 back-to-back huge matches, you know, it's good to see.
The main thing, though, is that even teams like Skyjump, Shakos, Momsy, despite relatively strong performances, they're still not far enough away from the rest of the leaderboard that they can go for, I'm not going to say reckless abandonment as far as decision making is concerned, but you don't want to get overly aggressive with it and then find yourself compromised heading into our final match of the day, where everything is just going to hinge on a singular match performance. Cammy, Shari, and Seti, also another team that's skirting just outside of that consistency placement on the leaderboard, sitting at around 12th heading into this 4th match of the day. And many also pointed it out, but this team struggling for Surge in the last game was a bit surprising.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about the leaderboards too, it's interesting as you mentioned. It's like, even though they're number 1, Skyjump, Shakos, and Momsy, they only have 149 points. I say only because in previous groups we've had, you know, trios that are close to 200 points, which almost guarantees their qual, right? But seeing that that's not the case here, you know, everybody is still kind of on the line. The points are so close within, you can see 4th through 8th, that anything can still really happen. So they do have to be careful in these last 2 matches in terms of making it to the late game and getting as many points as possible, as Sandguild is living strong to the meta, fishing up as many spare shieldfish and fish in general as possible.
This leaderboard, though, is definitely a big reflecting factor, though, of what everyone has been saying, right? Everyone's considering this as like the group of EU leading into that last chance qualifier or Major 1 finals. And so when you see the points just continue to remain as close-knit as they are, no one's seemingly finding that massive of a points advantage. It is so evident, Takata, that every single one of these teams competing here today has really got to be on their A game. You cannot afford to slip up for even a moment, or you will be fully, like, just taken advantage of in this kind of lobby.
Yeah, we talked about it already, but I mean, in terms of FNCS finals appearances, this is by far the highest out of any of the groups in EU, by over 100 finals appearances. So we've talked about it time and time again, but it's very difficult to qualify through this group, and you're definitely deserving of doing so if you end up finding yourself with a spot, as it looked like almost a disengagement from Shogun's Arena from Mongrel, Panzer, and Mr. Savage.
Wise of them to teleport off at Shogun's Arena, though. A team had already set up base here. Congo, though, trying to go for the lurk around play on this bottom ground, and it pays out. Rekfiji, just no chance whatsoever to escape. Now it's Misha as well, trying to see, can find where this last player might have ran off to, but Skylight going to remain hidden for now. I almost expect him to be pretty chucked if they were in that position inside the storm in the first place, but every little bit of placement counts.
Every little bit counts. I mean, just yesterday, Pink and his trio qualified by 1 point on the consistency leaderboard. Literally 1 point, Taco. That's like not even an elimination. You know, it's so crazy how close this can get, especially leading into the final matches of the day. So we'll take a look back at Rift Island. It looks like it's not going to be a contest for the boss here, as you gotta be careful though with 2 players getting cracked. Water Sprite forced to being used.
Artis' team maybe a little bit blessed by the fact that Mongrel and Savage Panzer actually opted to depart from the island, but this is a big part of the reason why. It looks like there is another team on a point of elevation that was trying to take some shots towards Cryfalls, I believe. So they've definitely got to monitor exactly how close they are to the edges, because that other team on height, it's definitely a bit of a problem here. Almost disastrous there as well for Fran. Had he been chopped out without that Void TP mask.
Yeah, it's the good news about, you know, this season. Those Oni masks kind of give you an extra safety net, even when you're on high ground. Although one of the matches we did see Vico, Blixie, and Veno chop down height, one of the players still got eliminated, but you kind of want to pre-place those Oni masks to avoid fall damage if you end up getting chopped down. But for Franek, Kaisers, and Dynas here, this is one of the trios that actually has yet to make an FNCS finals appearance. One of only 6 trios in this lobby. So, you know, it'd be kind of cool to see them take home a VR today, but it's a lot easier said than done.
Yeah, they were definitely dragged into the lion's den with this group as far as qualing is concerned, but bringing the focus back towards Refsguard's team, actually moving out from a surge base that they'd spent a decent chunk of time in, I'd imagine. They just find so much early success with that third-party circumstance at Kappa Kappa Factory. It does allow them, I think, to take a little bit more of a scenic route as far as how long they actually want to wait before rotating into the next zones.
Good news for Focus Dell at Refsguard, though, is, yeah, being 757 above. Have a lot more flexibility in the choices sometimes you need to make. I don't want to repeat myself, but I do feel like it's important. A lot of the times, you know, it's like, why isn't everyone just, you know, taking the dead side or going the place where the least amount of players are? Like, a lot of the time, especially in these lobbies, it's very difficult to get that damage, and you have to position yourselves in more riskier and harder rotates just to open up options for those tags if you aren't able to do it earlier on in the match. So the triple blade typhooning right into the box. Players looking like their prime mongrel with the shing 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 sky jump shake ons and Momsy going absolutely crazy, but I don't think it's paying off, Taco.
Yeah, I mean, sky jump kind of just reminded of the fact that pump shotguns do exist in this matchup. Shakos, though, with Momsy, they will get the double revive, but Asa, Hen, and DZ putting some really solid pressure up against the likes of that trio, kind of just punishing them for attempting to commit so heavily to the Typhoon Blade play.
Yeah, I respect it, though. Hey, I respect it. We've seen it pay off quite a few times throughout this weekend, so, you know, why not add another one to the list? As now, instead of using it to go into the box, they are going to use it to rotate. I would say it's, under the Oni mask, the best mobility item this season. If you're comparing the 2 blades alongside the Oni mask, so it could be worse, but ideally you do want to have one of these masks that Thomas HD is rocking right now on top of his surge base. Great position, to be fair. So much vision on these trios rotating in. Just kind of got to keep it up now.
All Thomas and Ferdoxy really need is just a little bit more damage. They can get to right around that 600 to 700 above threshold. That would really allow them to kind of play the next couple of zones with more emphasis towards getting early front side. Unfortunate tags there onto Ferdoxy, though. Does lose his shield. Thankfully, though, the other team not close enough to be able to actually capitalize on it and try to key him for it.
Look at this. Asa, Hen, and Andes as well with a quick elimination. Maybe we'll see them put a name for themselves on the board today. Hen being the player with, I believe, well, I mean, he has 3 FNCS titles just himself. But you got to be careful here. If you're in a position like that duo we just saw down in the mud. Feet. Insta pickings for Mr. Savage. Quick little walking llama. As now they're going to be able to build out. Keep an eye out. It's there right as Mr. Savage got the elimination. He didn't even go for the loot. He let his teammates loot that as he expanded the builds, knowing he most likely will get spare hard mats and didn't want the focus to close onto them. So doing a great job of building out right after an elimination.
Look at where Shari, Kimmy, and Seti are at. They've got Ferdoxy in their sights. Saw Tripper nearby and a bush as well, but Fortnite just paying the ultimate price currently. Another trio, though, gonna draw the attention momentarily. That allows Fortnite to get a little bit closer to the rest of his team. Thomas and Tripper, though, they had to give up their old surge base. Well, I shouldn't say had. Likely more so just a decision that they felt more comfortable making at this time because, again, it's just trying to control that front side of zone has proven to be the most successful measure for a lot of our teams here today.
Yeah. Also looking that it's the 7th zone. Ideally, you know, you don't want to rotate late into this one because the next zone is kind of one of those end game zones that's a majority inside of the storm. So especially seeing you got Rift Island in here, I mean, you want to be able to set yourself up quickly into a good position when you see where that storm does end up pulling towards. And I mean, for the trio up here on Shogun's Arena, this is exactly where you want to be with the amount of mats that they're going to be able to conserve.
Conservation of mats on top of the fact that this is just so much easier for them to find additional damage. It's not even about the surge threshold because they were already sitting at around 400 over it. It's more so just preventing teams from rotating how they would prefer to. Savage, Mongrel, and Panzer seem to have drawn a little bit more attention that they bargained for. They got another team trying to break into their box currently, and it's Fortnite, Tripper, Thomas HD on the other side of these walls. That's going to force Savage's trio kind of send themselves a little bit more forward, retreat back into some earlier builds. They have to be so careful, though. They don't realize Vox sitting just on the other side of this peak, trying to open up an angle, but Mongrel does recognize it at the last moment, but pays a price. Shot from behind. Doesn't have a chance to try and recover, and Mr. Savage won't even be able to rotate. Shot from the skies the moment that he broke out that Typhoon Blade.
Too focused on getting tags because they were below surge. Pre-edits came through. Honestly, at that point, it's quite difficult to get out of the situation they were in. For Della Focus and Revsguard, though, amazing elevation. Looking at all these trios rotate on in, taking free pickings at them as Cherry, Cami, Seti. They had a rough game 3. Need to make a comeback here and now, going into this match in 12th place. They dropped significantly on the leaderboard, so they won a big game to bring themselves back up.
It's like they have a really good amount of builds to work with, though. A lot of space currently claimed on that low ground, but it's all about height currently for Revsguard's team and making sure that they can fully control it. Revsguard even opting drop a little bit more material where needed, but Della, Focus, Revs, they want to make sure that they stay in control of that front side. They're even going to be the first team to teleport forward, take control of it.
That's that advantage of not having any builds blocking you, right? If you're down below, you have so many teammates surrounding you. Well, not teammates, but opponents surrounding you, that it's very hard to kind of find that triple Oni mask. But when you're on height, you can just instantly throw it. If you do it a little too late, you do have the risk of other players landing on top of you. But for Revsguard, Della, and Focus, it turned out well this time around, and now they're in prime position to look for more pickings.
This is looking really solid currently for Della, Revsguard, and Focus. Now it's all about just suppressing these lower tiers, making sure that they keep spraying everybody underneath them. Thomas HD, the material count not looking good. Fortnite and Tripper need to come up huge with an elimination securement here if they want to make sure they continue extending their presence on the low ground.
They need this game, Taco. Thomas, Fred, and Trip need to make something happen. It doesn't have to be a VR, but at least the top 3 is what they need to keep their eyes on here as Cherry, Cami, and Seti continue to apply that pressure on trios in the surrounding area. Will they look up for height? Will they continue to play kind of closer to the ground here is what I'm wondering. Good amount of materials, good amount of loot. They have options. That's what's important.
It seems like they're trying to control that secondary height layer, if anything. Quick peek back at Revsguard's trio in the skies, and Shari wants to get the chop. Successful measures as well. Huge fall damage gonna get chunked out of Focus and Della even, and that's gonna be Shari's green light. He's already starting to crank up, trying to see if they can reestablish a little bit of control here, and sure enough, Cammy gonna be the first to claim on this height take.
36 builds for Cami. It's all wood, no hard mats, but it might just be enough. They have to be careful, though. Another trio down below, second height, looking for shots. They quickly react, though, applying pressure, showing their dominance up above, saying, we're a full trio. Be careful if you want to contest us, as now all they got to do is stay ahead.
That is absolutely tragic, though, for Della, Focus, and Revscar. Revscar even forced the low ground and gets picked off by Thomas HD's team in the process. A lot of teams, though, still just managing to scrape by here in our lower layers. Prodoxy, Thomas, Tripburn trying to stake out some unregistered terrain. Instead, they're going to realize Artis' team is the one currently in control of frontside low. Thomas pulling back towards backside of zone. He's got no material left. He has to find a refresh. He has to find a lifeline, but it's not going to connect.
They go down. Is it going to be enough to push themselves up? Time will tell, but Cammy, Seti, Cherry still up above. Della now left as a duo alongside Focused. Only 7 builds to work with. It jumps into an opponent's box, doesn't even realize it as he goes down, and Focus now left alone.
Just goes to show how disorienting things can truly become when you aren't in control of this high ground layer. All the while, though, Shari having the time of his life up above with Cammy and Seti. And the way that the zone is about to pull over a hill, they're going to make sure that they even connect their builds to it. These teams trying to scramble up the elevation shift. Comeback with a nice elimination onto Artis. Buying himself a little bit more time, but tries to go up. Should immediately meet Cammy, Shari, Seti if he's not careful.
Still 10 players up. So much of the lobby is staying strong, even with this difficult zone. But Comeback has lost his teammate, left alone now. Mixin trying to crawl up. All these players doing what they can to get on up. And in the meantime, it's Cammy up above. It's Cherry, it's Seti, but Cammy's gone down. Now left as a duo. Where's the last player? Can they hit the shot? Cryfalls gets taken out. Where's the last one?
And the last one currently still setting up on the builds they had above. A chop onto Gudembry, and as he comes falling down, Shari and Seti continue to ascend here. A big win. Polska Gudem in this 4th lobby of the day, Takata, and they'll be all the happier for it.
Oh yeah, you can tell the vibes are up for this trio. I mean, coming from the last match where they were one of the first trios to get eliminated, a bit of a heartbreak as they got bumped down the leaderboard, but just in one match, second to last game of the day, they secure the victory royale, they secure their deserved spot in the major finals, and now we just get to watch it play out.
Let's be so real, though. It would be weird to not see Cammy and Seti alongside Shari in the Major 1 finals. We've got some really big teams kind of setting themselves up and preparing for what comes next here at Takata. It's a pretty exciting moment.
I'm excited. I'm sure a lot of the fans rooting on this Cammy, Seti, Cherry are excited, but I also know my desk is excited. So Frankie 11 Mini, what you got?
We have got some very happy analysts, and I have to say I'm very happy too. As Vico, Venno and Flixie left us in game number 3, it feels only fitting, Mini Miner, that Cammy, Seti and Cherry were free to take the high ground and the victory royale.
Yeah, they benefited off of Vico, Venno, Flixie no longer being in the game, right? I remember early in that 3rd game, it was Vico, Venno, Flixie. They're actually attacking the team off spawn. They actually rotated so far over to go and eliminate them, and that was their downfall there. And even when it comes to endgame, they're not on height. They have this freedom, this ability just to take height like we know that they can, Levin. They have it in their tank. And you asked me before, Frankie, will they be able to pick up a victory out, or will they be able to just keep out the consistency? And I said, they'll just make it to these end games. They'll continue to do it. And if they find a good position to take height and win the game, then they will. And that's exactly what's happened, Levin. Really good game.
Yeah, I mean, look how aggressive they were playing, man. They were going for pre-edit plays and all, you know. You associate Cammy and Seti with, you know, tarping out their mats, being stacked on mats anyway, not needing refreshes too much. But when they needed them, they went for them. They got them. Seti with 5 elims on the game. Absolutely mental. I mean, these guys are a team many people were expecting to get to the finals. They finally got the job done here. And yeah, I mean, they'll be watching, waiting in the wings, seeing if anyone will challenge them at the Lost Lake.
When we came into this trios era, I heard a lot of people saying, yeah, the really experienced trios, the really experienced players, they are the most consistent, they are the most likely to win. And I feel like it's brought on this new era of clean but extremely fun Fortnite, and I can't wait to see more of it after this break.
If it ain't me, it's bad, bad. Stack my dough and back bread. I'm on the road like bad gas. Gas by the assets. I pass off your fact checks. I pay no mind. I'm way too busy getting cash checks. That's just a facet, and you can't make the fame last. I need a whistle to official to be in your gameplay. No shot, cause I'm always in range.
Garam, my friends, welcome back to FNCS, where Cami, Seti and Chari took game number 4, and we have just one more game remaining before we can confirm which 10 trios from group number 3 will be making it through to next weekend's Major 1 finals. Now, it will be very interesting to look at the leaderboard because 5 of our trios do get through from consistency. So you've got your 5 golden tickets from the Victory Royales. There's one of those left to take. And then if you cast your eyes from 5 downwards on the standings, these are the trios that really want to keep their spot in the top 10 and therefore their place next week. And Combat, Blacker and Mixon, they're making a really good show of it. Another strong finish for them in game 4-11.
Yeah, I feel like if you were going to try and predict who's going to win this last game, you'd probably put them way up there. They're making it into these end games so deep every single time. You know, again, it's just that final win condition that's been missing throughout the day, but their performance has been top. I think they're going to be a team that a lot of people will be rooting for now come finals time, because you'd expect them to continue this sort of run in the Major 4 and finals next week.
Yeah, definitely. Huge game for these guys, coming off the back of an 18th place right there. It was a similar sort of zone as well, quite a far pull for them. And we were saying in the back, I know you were saying at 11, a bit of a far zone pull for them in that previous game. This time, yet again, they've sort of solved those problems of having the far zone pull. Having that storm surge early on has been beneficial for them. And I think realistically, what was that, 194 points? I think realistically that qualifies them through.
If they do qualify through, do you think that the zone pool situation, is that something you think they'll be able to work on and fix in time for next weekend, Levin?
I mean, it's hard, right? I think from certain spots, just playing certain zones is always going to be harder regardless. It's just sometimes about making use of the games where you do pull, right? At Shattered, they obviously prefer home zones in that place because, you know, Mixon can just sit up there on top of the bridge, you know, farm surge all game. So I don't think they'll be too stressed about it. I'm sure they'll have a plan come Grands.
Let's look at the leaderboard again, because we've talked about the teams that are sitting within the top 10 and qualifying for, or sitting with the chance of qualifying, I should say, for next weekend. If we look at page 2, there's definitely a couple of trios here who are feeling incredibly uncomfortable because they've been within a hair's whisker, I should say, of making it onto page 1, and they'll be desperate now. And Trip and Thomas HD and Prodoxy, they didn't have the strongest standings coming into this group, and I feel like they're not going to be feeling confident going into this final game, Mini.
Yeah, big names on that second page right there. Huge game for both of these teams in terms of Thomas and the other team that were in there as well, Mongrel, I should say. I was trying to think who it was. Yeah, massive, huge game for Thomas HD. I mean, I said at the beginning of the show that this is a team that have actually sort of switched drops a little bit in some of their divisional finals. They might go ahead and do that now in the final game. I just don't think it's working out for them there at Brutal Boxcars 11. They have been having some end games here today. It hasn't been like an off-spawn situation where they're just going down early on, but they haven't been able to make it into that upper echelon of placements. So for them right now, I think it's a win and you're in situation. They need it.
Look, this last game is going to be tough. The last game they just played, game 4, was a bit better. The implications here would be huge if they don't do it. Obviously, right, we have last chance next week, but, you know, Thomas H, he's just come off the back of global championships. He was the one pushing Peterbot and Poyo, and he was almost the savior of FNC, as some people had it. For him to now just not make the Major 1 finals would be cataclysmic.
Is it a Danish dream too far, Levin?
I hope not. You know, I got a lot of Danish friends. They'll all be hoping that, you know, they can get it done in this game, but it's not looked good, especially with just how they've been playing. You wouldn't even, you know, really consider them maybe for last chance with how difficult that's going to be. So they need to get it done here now.
We've seen Mr. Savage, Mongrel and Panzer have a spot within that top 10 today so far, but now they are outside of it. They're going to be feeling particularly insecure because they have come close to it. Mini Minor, they don't want to be up for the last chance qualifier. Do you think they can do it?
Yeah, I definitely think they can. I think they have the potential to in that trio. I think they need all of the power that they have inside of that trio to win this last game, because realistically, that's what they need to do. They've only managed one top 10 today, that 5th place in the first game. So they have it in their locker to make it to that stage of the game. Now, though, the pressure's going to be on so much more for these guys, because I think a lot of people would be expecting them to qualify through to the grand or through the Major 1 finals right there, because they have such a good drop spot. They have such a good plan, and it's all about executing it right now.
I'm really hoping they can get it done, man. You know, at heart, I'm a Mongrel fan. I'm a Savage fan. I want to see them do the job. I'm a fan of Panzer as well. Props to Panzer. Spam the cabbage to, you know, support Savage or whatever they say nowadays. You know, you better be spamming all the fans right now.
All right, well, cabbages all around as we head back to our casters, Takata and the best taco for game number 5.
Thank you, Frankie. I'm nervous, Taco. Like, I'm actually feeling stressed out. The hairs are starting to stick up on my hand. It's the last game of the final group for this EU FNCS. After this, all that's left is last chance and major finals. There's a lot of trios on the borderline of qualifying. Some that just have to keep it up in terms of consistency. Taco, who do you think's winning this game?
Oh, look, we're cutting it way too close for that to even be a decisive factor. Combat Baja and Mixon were looking really solid, but the last lobby, it's really anybody's game, especially some teams who need it. So let's get into the action.
It is time to lock in. It all comes down to this. We've got fans from all over the world now supporting their trio. We have Mongrel, Mr. Savage, Panzer in 14th place at 109 points. We have Thomas HD from Global Championships going head-to-head against Peterbot, now on the borderline of not qualifying at 90 points in 17th place. They might either need a victory royale or even, who knows, top 2 with enough eliminations will be enough. It's going to be hard to tell, but Taco, it all comes down to this.
It certainly does, but one team that definitely caught my eye, at least during that secondary page flip, was going to be Gutenbreed Moneymaker's team, because they jumped up 11 placements from their performance in that last lobby, putting themselves into 12th on that leaderboard, and so they're substantially closer. I know that we've got a lot of action taking place here at Big Ben Tunnel, but for both of these trios, they desperately need a victory royale if they want to find themselves having a sliver of a chance at making it through to the Major 1 finals. And so far, this battle has just kind of worked against both teams.
Yeah, but that victory royale, it starts somewhere, Taco, and it starts in whoever ends up winning this early game engagement. It looks like Yasin and Siren now might even be able to double pick up their teammate here, which is going to put them at a clear advantage, as I believe there's only one opponent left as a solo trying to do what he you know, can to get out here. Gonna take the porta potty. And just like that, it looks like they might have secured it.
It's just such a sad scene for Warsnipe, just kind of waiting, essentially, for that knocked bar to run out into a full elimination. The problem, too, is that where his body is at, recovering that reboot card's not going to be easy, depending on how long the trio actually decides to stick around. All things considered, Takada, when you know that you're staking it all on this final lobby, for some of these teams, that mentality of, hey, look, we're just going to stop you in the process can definitely come into effect.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, especially in this last game, you know, we've talked about pressure, we've talked about nerves. This is the most stacked group for EU, but even then, I'm sure a lot of these trios, they got to be feeling something. They got to be feeling something in this last match. It's impossible to not. As we look at Misha now, who is at night shift in an early game battle, looking for angles.
Yeah, the big problem, though, is that Kengu's already being eliminated fully, and Lyric understanding that Misha just up above. Rash as well from a separate direction. Gonna try and see if they can get another opposing view. Side jump up, nearly gets the job done, but Misha does a pretty solid job at recovering. Misha even finding some huge tags back with the pump. It's gonna force this enemy trio to kind of just wait up a minute. They're gonna have to make sure that they are healthy enough to continue this fight.
Yeah, we've talked about how to play as the aggressors, you know, looking for different angles, trying to kind of find those openings. But when you're playing defensive like Burke, Rash, and Larix here, you kind of know that some of the players will be a bit split from the team. And if you can catch them off guard, all jump at them playing together, maybe even box them up and find one pick like that, it's the start of turning around an early to mid-game fight like this. And that's exactly what they did to come out on top here. So great job playing defensively, great job finding a pick. It's going to help them continue on forwards. I think I saw someone that wasn't part of the trio just
Panzer
just sitting on the boat. No, was he alone?
Oh, you're talking about for right here. I was referencing Panzer kind of scenes towards Night Shift Forest there. Spotted out probably. That elimination feed lighting up. Also likely heard the shots. Recognized a solid opportunity to try get that third party action going. But yeah, on the far north side of the map, Icy, Vox, Snazy still dealing with the likes of Hench Trio. Asa still lurking nearby potentially, but it has been a tough day for some of our teams far out of the map. But Revskar, this is a surprise. Strolled all the way into Hopeful Heights, and instead, this might just be their demise. Della forced to retreat. Can't afford to stick around for much longer. But whether or not Shimoki actually lets this one happen is another story entirely. Shimoki, though, blasted from a completely different approach. Another team on the horizon just spotting the perfect opportunity. It's Cryfalls in the gang.
Oh, no.
And they just found a perfect elimination opportunity to close in on.
Yeah, and two's Shimoki. And sure, this is a trio that I would say needs the victory royale to qualify in this last match. So hopefully now that they've gotten those 3 eliminations and hopefully, you know, can find a reboot onto Shimoki, this could be the match to close it out.
One big positive for Revskar is the fact that they were sitting at around 180 points leading into this. So no, Hen though, that's one of our teams that definitely needed a victory royale. And the sights are not looking good currently. Not sure if Asa's still hanging about somewhere, Dakota, but the fact of the matter is, with Hen having been taken out, the ringleader of that trio now, it's just gonna be a matter of time for them to figure out if it's gonna be the last chance qualifier or not. But Fox get a chance to look back and see what went wrong here for Hen and Andy. It's just some really well-connected shots coming out of Icy's trio.
Yeah, they don't have any shield though, so I guess maybe they were running out from a third party or an engagement, or I don't know, something happened that caused them to just not have the resources to take a fight this early on. Maybe it's even running into Thomas's trio here. No Elam's on the board, but I'm sure they got a bit of damage there at least.
Thomas knows, though, that it's all or nothing in this last lobby. For them to not immediately qual into the Major 1 finals after that global championship performance, it would definitely be pretty devastating to witness, Takata.
Oh.
And for Thomas, it just keeps getting worse. Fredoxy, Tripburn with no shield. Fredoxy even just hoping that he can escape. Tripburn's not going to be able to clutch it out this time. And it's a story, yet again, of the exclusive fate of this trio resting upon one member. Fredoxy knows that Rick Bohr, they can choose to try and sit at that reboot card for a while if they want.
Yeah, everything is on the line for this trio right now. Fredoxy's the last one up. I mentioned it earlier, but I'm going to reiterate it. Literally, we had Thomas HD, the most successful player yet to take home one of these major championships. I mean, even in the global championship, kind of being the main player going against Peterbot, battling it out to now not even qualifying through Major 1. It would be tough. They have last chance, and they still have Fredoxy up in this match. So if a miracle can come through, it's going to be from that trio. We'll have to see if it does end up happening. On the other hand, though, Savage, Mongrel, Panther, they're not qualled yet either. Following closely behind where Thomas HD was on the leaderboard. They're just on that borderline, close to qualifying in 14th place. They're going to need a big game here.
And Panzer's got to be real careful with where he goes next, because his shield's definitely looking a little bit rough there. But fortunately for Mongrel's team, it looks like Skylight and Co. are no longer interested in this fight. They're going to opt to try and avoid Onimask away from that situation taking place at Lost Lake. That might put Savage's team into a position where they could get some additional tags while that team is looking to escape, and that could put them for openings as far as keying for knocks or eliminations is concerned. Still, it's evident that they really want to establish their surge early on.
Yeah. Levin was talking about it. Blaha mix and comeback. I mean, you can look at Blaha on top of the bridge, just taking pop shots at anybody that comes into sight.
Could also be fishing from up there. Keep in mind, you can actually fish from the top of Shattered Span. Even if you are boxed up, you just got to pay a little bit closer attention to the animation of that fishing rod itself. And Blaha as well. This is quite the scenes for this team, though, on the bridge.
Yeah. Where they get their fishing rods. Just take a look. Well, they have that opportunity at redemption. Thomas HD, the most FNCS finals appearances playing out today. Most second place finishes on EU.
Uh-oh.
Now rebooted back in, but it looks like a trio has spotted them off. Now, this could be a pro or a con, Taco. If they do end up battling against this trio and winning that fight, that's a quick refresh to put them back in the game. But the issue is they don't have the advantage in terms of shield, loot, materials. They have nothing to kind of give them hope at winning one of these battles. But if they do it, it might just be enough.
A great twin fire is not what I want to see for Thomas in terms of trying to turn things around here. Huge, though, from Fredoxy. Takes out the shields. Now wants to fully close in on this elimination onto Burke. Unfortunately, though, Tripburn punished for having just been rebooted, just not healthy enough, and that is going to force Fredoxy to have to back off here because they know that they're going to have to make a reboot play yet again. They can't continue to draw more attention. It's also probably been communicated that Tripburn, he wasn't eliminated by Burke or Resh. It's Savage and Mongrel that are rolling into Flooded Frogs now, trying to take advantage of what they heard coming out of that reboot queue.
Looking like sharks smell a bit of their prey now as they get closer and closer to Thomas and Fred here. They heard their shots come through. They saw the knock on the feed. They know they need a big match to close this one out. A top 10, top 7, even top 6 might not be enough for Mongrel, Mr. Savage, and Panzer. They need to have a solid end game here.
Look, all I'm going to say is that if Thomas, HD, Tripper, and Fredoxy manage to turn this game around, that is beyond a miracle run. My man is sitting there with 12 bandages, hoping to stay hidden long enough. And not only that, but you also have to picture Takata Storm Sickness. Even if that trio were to recover right now, get some decent loot, they can't really afford in the long term to try and play Storm like some of these other teams might be able to do. So they're gonna have to be a lot more cautious from this point forward, and they still have to be concerned about the fact that, you know, Mongrel, Panzer Savage, if you get one elimination, you know that team's going to keep trying to get that reboot going, right? So why not stick around a little bit longer?
Yeah, I mean, the good news, I guess, kind of good news, is if they do end up getting that reboot and making it back to zone, it's not really a heal-off meta, so in the late game, Storm Sickness won't matter as much to them, as they ultimately do have their eyes on that, you know, prize victory royale. And it's going to be a long journey, a marathon for them to make it that far, but, you know, it's possible. It's difficult, but it's definitely possible.
On a happier note, though, team's over by Shogun's Arena, looking to stake their claim, be the ones to claim that Shogun X medallion. Frozy kind of just staring up currently at where Artis is positioned, trying to make sure that they establish a good perimeter around. They know that Shimoki and Toos are the ones currently up at the top, but that doesn't mean that Artis, Cryfalls, and Frozy can't look for some good surge damage from underneath that Shogun's Arena.
Just looking around on the mini-map. Not too many trios in this side of the map, to be fair, already. But I guess the good news is the trios that are here hopefully have kind of done a good amount of damage so far, where they don't have to be on more of a congested side. Looking back on the contrary, though, players inside the zone still, with a couple eliminations to their name, looking to get a third now and wipe the full trio. Good job there.
Definitely catching some signs of life from teams outside of that higher end of the leaderboard, and hey, better late than never. Everybody's got to have a starting point somewhere, but one team that definitely started to kind of get their catalyst movement in that fourth lobby, Clownsky, Gudenbry, and Moneymaker, again jumping 11 placements on the leaderboard to put themselves in 12th position, leading into this final lobby, Takata. And not only that, but Clownsky, someone with a lot of experience in terms of these reboot-style formats. I mean, 81 appearances. And with that in mind, I think that when you especially get down to these last lobbies, the final moments, it can be very easy for Panic to kind of become a dictating measure of how your endgame goes. But Clownsky's someone that I think can really help guide his team through that.
100%. And they literally have to do that now more than ever. I mean, you said it yourself. They have the experience in the reboot style games, second most in the lobby. Mixon's kind of leading the pack with 82. As we look back at Trip, Fred, and Thomas HD, they got the reboot, but like you said, they're yet to get back in zone. Mongrel, Savage, and Panzer are still right on the other end. Oh my, this is gonna be so tough.
The fact that they're taking the train to just continue moving themselves towards zone, but I know they can hear these shots being fired. They're going to be part of the action even, shooting from the train. Panzer, Savage, Mongrel in a little bit of trouble here, but Panzer is going to recognize the fact, hey, there's a team just chilling on the train currently, getting a fast-track ticket into zone. Still, Thomas, Tripper, and they jumped off momentarily. It seems like they wanted the fight. But now it's going to be Panzer, who might actually find tables turned on him.
Some insane shots getting connected. The thing with these two trios is they're both on the borderline of qualifying. They're not in that top 5 in terms of consistency, but they're on the edge. One big game could be enough for either of these trios. It shouldn't even need to be a victory royale. A top 2, top 3 could do it with enough eliminations. So both of them really don't want to, you know, fully commit to this engagement yet.
Taking that porta potty though, I think that's might have been one of the reasons why. Once Fredoxy, Thomas, and Trippern realized that they were definitely too exposed on the train. They wanted to see if they could get outside of that tunnel area. But now, Fredoxy, he might have mats, but he is burning through them quickly because of Wheat. Just relentless. Trippern so separated as well from Fredoxy. He's got to be real careful that Savage, Mongrel, and Panzer continue to pay him no mind. But it's evident these teams, they just want to make it into the zone.
Yeah, this is looking tough for Mongrel, Savage, and Panzer, as Mongrel's been fully cracked. Is going to be forced to pop some shields here. Has to be careful with the amount of trios that are kind of looking at them from the surrounding area. They already have a good amount of damage, so they don't want to look for tags. They just want to stay up here and honestly find a way to heal. They have a fishing rod, so if they get close enough to that body of water, they can definitely do so.
And Thomas, finally we see him just behind where Fredoxy and Trippern are currently at. The fact that Fredoxy has managed to help maintain his team to being above that surge threshold, it goes such a long way for this trio right now, but still have to be very careful with how they actually choose to enter zone. Teams that are already positioned well before them, having much better opportunities to just look back and spray some of these later stragglers.
I don't know how they made it this far, to be fully honest, Taco. From the early games that Fred, Thomas, and Trip have had to go through, they are now just 84 below, down to 30. If anybody's going to connect shots to get themselves above Surge, it's going to be Thomas HD with the aim he's known for. But all the other trios fighting now, this could open up a potential third party for the teams. Issue is, it's not even fully in the zone, I'd say, so they do have to be careful.
Just looks like Fredoxy was running on fumes there, but Panzer hoping to get a really big refresh for his team if possible. Savage kind of low here. Panzer knows he's got to play the supportive measures necessary. His last couple of splashes used as well. Skylight, Artem, they seem to be in a spot of trouble here though. They're underneath that surge damage threshold. We saw those surge ticks coming into play, and that just might be the saving grace for both Thomas's team and Savage's, because they were able to kind of find that sandwich opportunity, but now neither of these trios willing to really take that direct fight with each other. It's just not worth the risk. Both teams understanding we have just got to get closer to the zone.
This is crazy. This is insane, as we can see both players kind of pinching another trio, which has just gave them enough damage to outlive the Storm Surges. Now they make their way back in. Two legendary veteran trios somehow staying up on that borderline of making it through. Mats are being farmed. I don't see any more shields on Thomas HD though. 12 below now. A refresh is what this trio really needs, but Thomas gets cracked, dropped down to just 20 HP. The Oni Mats come through. They need to win this engagement.
Thomas just needs to survive at this point if they want to have any hopes. Fortunately enough, Petya gonna be taken out, but Thomas, he's been knocked. Trippern, only 13 HP left to work with. He just needs one shot off to Wheat, but he doesn't connect. The misses happen. Thomas HD, Trippern, they'll be forced to once again just be spectators on the sideline. For Doxy, this poor man just left to try and carry through. But the whole lobby looking back at where you're currently situated, this is going to be a really tough entrance.
For Doxy and the Dream, I need to keep my eyes as well on, you know, Mr. Savage, Mongrel, and Panzer that I believe are still up as a trio, also on the borderline. Hopefully Fred's able to make something happen here, but this is going to be a match. Still a good amount of trios up.
You can see them just below. Savage, Panzer, Mongrel. Big elimination onto Chris, but surge threshold isn't the issue. Now, Savage has an ample amount of materials to try and work with. Transp gonna join that elimination tally count here for the trio. And what was once looking like they were running relatively thin as far as their resources are concerned, this battle of attrition now potentially turning in their favor since they just managed to collect another couple of nice Elim refreshes.
This could be enough. They've done a great job of playing kind of from shambles on the edge of zone to making their way to the late game. It's the setup that Mongrel, Mr. Savage, and Panzer need to qualify themselves to the major finals. 8th zone, as right now shortly we will start these moving zones, and this is where it all matters the most.
Snazy's team, though, just trying to get some good peeks. They see Tooses under a lot of pressure from both sides of the lobby, but the team on height is going to be the real threat there. For Doxy, still managing to just skirt around, staying alive. Zero shield, though. Has to hope that he can find a solo pickoff here. And the mixture of all this chaos taking place in the low grounds, just tucked away, hoping that he can get all the more higher as far as placements are concerned.
One build alongside a singular dream for Fredoxy here, as unfortunately it is going to be Mr. Savage that takes him out. It's all up for the last chance major now for Thomas HC and his trio, but we continue on to finish this game now. Mongrel, Mr. Savage, Panzer are going to be the ones on the borderline that are getting closer and closer to taking home that VR, but Vox has lost his teammate. It's Ice that goes down, left alone as a duo with Snazy.
And what initially looked like it was a somewhat promising spot there for Snazy, now he's just trying to chase down, but the movement gonna work against him. That's a wall kick. I didn't necessarily desire high ground, though. From the bottom to the top here, Savage, Panzer, and Mongrel now find themselves in the driver's seat for height.
I can feel the excitement from the fans right now as Mongrel, Mr. Savage, and Panzer are looking like they're holding clean onto the high ground. All it takes is a couple pulls here. Will the zone pull towards them? Will it pull away? All they have to do is maintain this height. The issue is it being the last match in groups. There's so many trios that need to go all or nothing. They're gonna be contesting that high ground. They're gonna want to take it.
Panzer's got to be very confident in terms of making sure to keep those secondary height layers from trying to approach. Jakey, Michael, ADN, handful of players all just scattered around in the mid to low ground areas, but Panzer continuing to just teleport forward, continuing to try and ensure that his team remains on height towards the front side of zone. And one of the best situations for them possible, too, if you're a Mongrel fan, is the fact that Momsy and Skyjump, a team that's been so adamant in contesting for height, they're only a duo right now.
Yeah, they were looking for it, trying to play in Storm, but without the materials to take height, they have no options to do so as they get dropped down. Momsy goes down now, leaving his teammate as a solo, and Mr. Savage doing a great job of getting ahead here, trying to do what he can to keep his team connected, avoiding that drop down.
Everyone else just seems like they're caught in their own crossfire battles. They don't have a time to think about whether or not they can actually challenge the high ground. Miscellaneous TP's going up, but nobody following suit after the fact, so Panzer just continuing the tart forward. Down to just a handful of builds, gets another supply drop, though, from his team. Mongrel and Savage almost certainly going to start dropping down here, just looking for disruptor moments towards those teams in the low ground.
Guden, Clown, Moneymaker, that's another trio on low that are just on the borderline of qualifying. The cutoff going into this match was around 147 points, but it's going to go up after this ends. And just like that, Moneymaker, Guden, and Clown pick up a few extra eliminations, getting closer and closer to that qualifying range.
This is so tough. Michael and ADN, they're getting sprayed from height. They're getting their floors chopped out from underneath them. Gudenbree continuing to break through here as well. Moneymaker and Clownski ensuring that they can maintain this frontside position on the low ground. But Bepro gets caught in the mix. ADN drops a layer, then realizes there's his full team down below here. He's got to go back up.
Michael, are you kidding me? As now ADN goes up above, but instantly gets taken down. Mr. Savage, Mongrel, Panzer doing it for the fans, looking to close out this last game. They get shot down. It's now a 3 versus 3 down below. Panzer goes down. Savage, he has 4 med kits. Is it going to be enough?
This is so many medkits, though. If you're ever going to look for a heal-off opportunity, all they need is for Mongrel to get a big shot, and Moneymaker taken out of the call. Now it's all up to Savage. He's just got to stay hidden. Gudenbri, Clownski, hoping that they can track down this final player. Unfortunately, though, the storm is just too powerful. So much time had been spent inside of that storm that Clownski and Gudenbri will be able to confirm this one to Kata, but at the same time, that might have just been enough for Mongrel and Mr. Savage.
I'm speechless, Taco, because both of these trios, Guden, Clown, Moneymaker, 12th place going into this match. Mongrel, Mr. Savage, Panzer, 14th place going into this match. So just like that, Guden, Clown, Moneymaker secure the VR. They were on top of Mr. Savage and his trio going into this, so that could potentially open up a new spot for that trio to qualify. First of all, congratulations, Guden, Clown, Moneymaker, from NA to EU. Moneymaker showing that he's still got it, qualifying themselves with the VR. But Taco, I want to know what's going to happen with Mr. Savage, Mongrel, and Panzer.
Yeah, I mean, as far as our leaderboard is concerned, Takata, I think that they have either catapulted themselves into the promised land, or we are looking at what could be a heartbreaking defeat, because they really gave it their all in this final lobby. But they're not the only ones. A huge congratulations to Moneymaker's team for finding this final victory of the day. But that's going to do it for us as far as Group 3 is concerned, Takata. Now we got to see what the desk has to say on how everything broke down for the day.
Much to Carter and the best Taco if you're casting. Can't wait to hear you next weekend for our Major 1 finals. Now, boys, it was so close for Mongrel, Savage and Panzer. They really needed to have a strong result. And as Takata hinted, we need to find out if they've made it, but we've got to wait a bit longer. We've got to wait for that consistency leaderboard to be compiled and ready. So while we do that, let's talk about our Victory Royale winners, Gunbri, Clownski and Moneymaker, aka the newly christened Popular Kid. We have seen these guys grow from strength to strength during today's games, and Mini Miner, it felt like they had full command of the low ground in that endgame.
Yeah, well, they just came off the back of a second place, right, in the previous game before, so they had it in their locker to make it to this sort of stage of the game. I think realistically, they would have been very, very happy about getting here just for that consistency as well. And it was those couple of eliminations there at the end 11, I think it was 2 or 3, that they got right there that just gave them all those materials to keep on plowing through this lobby on that low ground. Really unfortunate for Savage, Mongrel and Panzer. We'll see if they qualify through, but a really well-played game from these guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's really good to see Guden, Clown and Money make it in. I mean, I remember I was talking to my good friend Coach Boop last week, and he was like, my wild prediction for this group, everyone's talking about all the big stack names. I reckon Moneymaker gets a win, and it took them till game 5, but they did it. So he clearly had some sort of foresight I didn't have, because I didn't see it coming. They ramped up the performances throughout the day, right? And they were close to those consistency spots, but to get it done with a win in the final game must be an amazing feeling. I'm sure Moneymaker's on stream somewhere right now singing Popular as we speak. So yeah, no, it'll be a good night for those guys for sure.
Well, if anyone has got the 2 tabs open watching us and watching Moneymaker, please do clip that. I would like to see that reaction. I would love to hear that beautiful voice singing. So let's take a look at the Victory Royales from today, and we'll see which 5 trios have booked their spot in the Major 1 finals via a glorious win. And there's some really big names in here, Levin. We were expecting to see these guys going through for the most part.
Absolutely. I mean, of course, in terms of the big names, right, the obvious ones, Malabuka, Ping, Wox, Vico, Veno, Flixi, Seti, Chari, Kami, the names I think most people expected. I was really happy, though, to see Kantri, Finchek and Upper win that first game, because they are a bit more of an underrated team, but a team that has been performing incredibly well. If you're locked into the EU streets, you've seen their names in leaderboards in recent weeks, so I can't wait to see what they do come Major 1 finals.
Yeah, and that's what this format's all about, isn't it? We're getting to see some of these teams that are definitely performing well throughout the seasons, able to pick up either a victory or showcase their consistency throughout the days. I'm excited to see what they can do in the finals. I'm excited to see what these last chance qualifiers have as well.
And I'm excited to see what our friend Vico has to say, because you saw him take game number 3 with Veno and Flixi earlier, and now you're going to see him talk all about it as he joins us in our own little analyst desk lobby. Vico, first of all, congratulations on qualifying so smoothly through to the Major 1 finals. What have you been up to during the last couple of games?
Not much really, I'll be honest. I was just watching the whole time with Veno and Flixie and Raz. And we were just talking about like some teams, and that's basically all it. Did you hear me? Yeah, okay.
Vico, it's good to have you here. I know you're not feeling too well. I know you're not feeling too well. You're a bit under the weather, but you're still performing, still doing your thing. I will say though, there was that one game where you had the medallion. You went up for the high take. You didn't quite hit the shots you needed to hit. Were you a bit down then after that game, right? Did you feel like you let your team down, and how did you sort of use that energy to bounce back into the next one?
Well, after game 2, I was a bit like mad, but it wasn't like a big mistake, I'd say. Like no one was really mad about it, because it's something that happens, But it was definitely a bit sad, because I definitely shouldn't have died there. But I couldn't really see because I had a FOV bug. But I mean, I used that energy that I had. We already knew that we were called because we had 180 points after those 2 games. But we just used that energy, got a couple of eliminations, and then we just won that game. Took height, second moving or something, and then from then on, no one looked up. So we just decided to clear that lobby.
A lot of people in the EU region would say that you guys are the best team in the region this season. You've been winning so many events, proving that yet again today with some great performances. How do you manage that pressure now going into the Major 1 finals? Does it almost amp up the pressure knowing that you have these expectations on your shoulders?
I wouldn't say there's any pressure, because it's obvious that we're the best team, who's better than us currently. But also, it's an expectation we had set ourselves, I mean, we already knew when we started playing that we're the best team by far. And I mean, after a lot of practice and minor tweaks and stuff, I think there's no pressure really.
It's obvious that a clear part of your game plan is going for that Shogun's medallion, and you basically always get it. But you're not always the player that takes it for the trio. And actually, the Victory Royale you won, Vico, it was on Veno. Do you prefer it when he's taking the medallion, and why would that be?
I definitely prefer it when Veno has it, because it's something that fits his playstyle, it's an invisible coin, you can do ratty plays, you can do sneaky plays. I'm not that type of player, I just go on vaults, I take those vaults because of my Dream and Ping, and then I just, take out the eliminations, and then, that's basically it. It just, I don't know, every time I have the coin, it feels like I'm playing at a disadvantage, so it's more fun when Veno has it.
Look, Vico, you already mentioned it. You're the best. You guys are the best team right now. Everyone's looking at you guys as the favorites. Going into the Major 1 finals next weekend, what do you think is the biggest obstacle for you guys? What will be the thing that could potentially stop you guys from winning it all?
Maybe teams from running away from us, but I don't think even if that happens, that'll stop us. So I'd say there's nothing really that can stop us, except game crashes.
And how does that experience that you guys have now? Of course, you have Veno on the team who has so much experience winning FNCS titles. Of course, yourself with Flixie winning there in Major 3 last year. Does that help boost the confidence going into the Major 1 finals?
Of course it does. I mean, you've got one of the best players of all time in our team, and then you have the 2 current best players in you. So it's there's a big confidence boost there, I'd say.
Vico, thank you so much for talking to us. Where can we find you online?
Well, you can find me on Twitch, Vico Trauna, VICOTRYONA, as well as on Twitter or X now, and at YouTube as well. Everything with the same name, and that's it. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Good branding.
Yeah, great branding. Dankeschön. Thank you so much, Vico. Love to your mum. We'll see you in the Major finals next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Go, Vico, go.
Look, I can't see Vico without giving his mum my best. I love her very much. She's normally always gaming when he's competing. She's that chill about the situation. And yeah, I appreciate seeing another woman gaming strong. Now, we have got to find out which of our trios have made it through to the Major 1 finals, not via Victory Royale, but via consistency. So very soon, hopefully, we're actually going to see the list and make things official, because I really do want to know if Mr. Savage's trio made it into that top 5. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like they made the cut. They might have to go through the last chance qualifiers because they missed out by 1 spot. spot. They were 6th. That's got to be devastating, Mini Miner.
Yeah, that is absolutely devastating. I mean, it just shows that final game right there, the heel off wasn't quite there. And I think realistically, 11, it was all down to those storm fights earlier on into the game. They'll be not too happy with how that went. And of course, they spent so long inside of the storm. Storm sickness comes into play. He couldn't stay in the storm there at the end for long enough. So, you know, he tried the medkit play as early as he possibly could. And unfortunately for Mr. Savage and co, they're not making it through to the finals this time, but there's still hope for them.
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for them and for all the fans, because I think this is a team who, one, is just so important to the region in terms of, you know, so many people support them, so many people want to see them do well, so many people watch them, right, in those big moments in the major finals. For them to not be there would be really, really rough. I think the biggest question now, not just for these guys, but for all of these big name teams like the Trippin and the Thomases and Fredoxys of the world, for some other teams as well, you know, do we stick together for last chance, right? I've been paying attention to some of the other groups where people didn't make it. There's already a lot of people splitting up, looking for trio, looking for people to play last chance with this week. Will Mongrel Savage stick with Panzer, right? Will Thomas leave Fredoxy and Trippin and find someone else? Like, we're gonna see absolute pandemonium potentially this week in terms of trio switch-ups.
Okay, then, Levin, I like putting you into this coaching role. If you are Mongrel Savage, Panzer, do you stick together?
That's hard, man. You know what? I think they do. I think they do stick together because they've had some success in open type formats this season, right? Like, there's been a lot of opens where they've won, where they've done really well, and Last Chance is going to be the most open of open formats, right? Everyone from every division can play, and then once they, you know, potentially make it to finals, just win one of those 3 games. I can see them doing it. Let's see if they stick together, though.
Okay, Mini Man, I'm going to throw another trio at you. Della, Focus, and Refsguard. Do you think they've got what it takes?
I think they do. I think they're a trio that have proved to us today that they can make these end games. They can stay consistent. I know there's a trio out there in iDrop, Sky, and Scroll that'll be very happy that they didn't qualify through, of course, landing at that same drop spot that they do. But yeah, I think for this trio, realistically, whether they'll stick together or not, I don't know. I'm not sure, but I think they are a trio that have what it takes to perform when it comes down to the last chance qualifiers. So if they do stick together, I'm sure they'll do very well.
Well, I also have to say, je suis très heureuse parce que le French trio, they have qualified through to the Major 1 finals. Apologies for the bad/broken French there, but we will be seeing them represented in the Major 1 finals next week. That's Mumsy's Solari trio. So congratulations to those guys and to all of our trios who made it through groups 1, 2, and 3. Next weekend's Major 1 finals are going to be absolutely stacked. I can't wait for it. Can you, Levin?
I can't wait. I can't wait. It's going to be exciting. So much is going to unfold in this next week and develop, but we're going to be here to cover it all on the weekend, so can't wait.
Yeah, Mini Miner.
Yeah, I'll be here too. It's going to be great. I can't wait for it. And this is what it's all been building up for, right? It's our first trio major of the year, first trio grand final type event, Major 1 final for a very, very long time. So I'm excited to see how it all unfolds.
Well, thank you to you guys, to the best Teco, to Carter, the production team, and of course you guys for watching the action this weekend. We'll see you next weekend to wrap it up with our first winning trio of the year. But for now, sound that horn. Good night.